When I was a kid, I lived in Mexico for a year and a half in this little village called De Halo. And that's where we're going. Thought I'd show you around.
Wow. Well, did you run this idea by your mom? Because sometimes I get the impression that she doesn't really like surprises.
I don't care.
Did you guys get in a fight last night?
No.
So this is definitely a field trip and not some revenge fantasy.
Welcome to Gimmicks, a podcast about the high-concept, experimental, structure-breaking gimmick episodes of TV, from musicals to bottle episodes to a multi-perspective international adventure ending with the death of a main character. I'm David Arnold.
Come with me if you want to live. I'm Derek B. Gale.
And this episode, we're talking about Terminator, the Sarah Connor Chronicles, and the episode, Mr. Ferguson is Ill Today.
Yes. If you are not familiar with Terminator, the Sarah Connor Chronicles, it was a science fiction TV series airing on Fox from January 2008 to April 2009 for only a mere 31 episodes across 2 seasons. Tragically, as you might guess, it is a spinoff of the Terminator films. Even though this movie came out after Terminator 3 came out, about 5 years after Terminator 3, that movie didn't do so amazingly well. People didn't love it. So this show actually picks up after the events of Terminator 2, the movie that everyone does love. Though it very quickly kind of sets itself being very distinct from its pilot episode. It's a very different show from the Terminator movies, despite very, very heavily taking place in the universe of the first 2 films. It, of course, follows the titular Sarah Connor and her son John as they work to prevent the creation of Skynet and the destruction of the world, helped by a reprogrammed Terminator named Cameron. That's like the log line for the show. It is a lot more complicated than that is, but that's the gist that you need to go going into it, and then it just kind of goes very wacky with the time travel, science fiction AI stuff from there.
Yes, VV wacky on this one. This one's pretty incredible. Derek, what's your experience with Terminator, the Sarah Connor Chronicles?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty expected that I like Terminator a lot, and then there was a Terminator show that was coming out, so I watched the Terminator show. That's pretty much the story.
Incredible.
Yeah, I know. I watched it from day one. I was excited when it was announced. I've always been a big Terminator fan. I would point people to the Are You My Mother episode that David and I did on Sarah Connor. I was the guest on for that, and we talk about the Terminator films, but at the time, David, you hadn't watched this show. So this is kind of a sequel episode to that episode.
It is.
So you can hear a lot of my backstory about the Terminator franchise there. I won't rehash all of that, but in short, I've been a fan of the Terminator franchise since I was a child. It was the first 2 movies. I watched them when I was a teeny tiny baby and absolutely should not have been watching movies like that, but I did. And it imprinted on me, and I've always loved them. And my love for the series, and especially those first 2 movies, has only grown substantially the older that I've gotten. And this is a show that I've always carried a torch for. I really liked it a lot at the time. I do think it's a show that I remember at the time, following at the time and reading reviews of it, that like people kind of struggled with it and had a hard time really getting, because it is not what you would expect a Terminator TV show to be, right? By a long shot. And I would struggle with it a bit at certain times, but I still appreciated what it was doing enough. Even if I didn't quite get it, I would be like, but I can tell that it's like doing something good and smart with these Terminator stories and ideas and characters, and that's enough for me. And then it is also the kind of show that like once it's done, you can kind of look back and realize like what they've been doing all along, and it's like it kind of changes your view of it. So it is a show that every time I've revisited it and rewatched it, I've only gained more love for it. I rewatched the whole show again for this episode, for this podcast, and like I feel like I love it more than I ever did. Like I used to be like, it's a flawed show that's like also really, really good. Now I'm like, you know what? Honestly, outside of like 1 or 2 things, it's a pretty fucking perfect show, actually. Like, it's great. So I'm excited to talk about it. What about you, David?
Well, as people might remember from our episode, I had plenty of time to talk to my friend Derek about Sarah Connor, but I had to make some decisions at some point in time and just couldn't commit to the full series right then. Derek had already given me a 2-season Fox show to enjoy in the household, and that was True Calling, which we recorded an episode about around the same time that we talked about Sarah Connor. But pretty much immediately following our recording, maybe a couple weeks went by, and my husband Mike, who procured all of the Terminator franchise for me to enjoy, said, we have this TV series. We're done with True Calling. I need something else. Can we start watching this? And we put on the pilot, and the first 10 minutes were a big no in the household.
Really?
Yeah.
In what way?
It just, the first few minutes are just not the same vibe that we were looking for. Like the opening is great. The sort of like fake out dream of the pilot is incredible. And then there's just a little bit of slowness to it until Cameron gets introduced. Now I knew Summer Glau was a Terminator because of like being
Marketing.
a nerd in the world. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And so when I saw her show up in biology class or whatever the fuck it was, I was like, oh, some shit's about to get real. But Mr. Arnold was not quite there, had no clue who this is, has never seen a Firefly in his entire life.
Yeah.
So he was hanging on a little bit. And then I think once the pilot ended and we were in a different time, Mike was hooked. Like Mike demanded us watch the show. Even when I started to feel I felt a little bit of drag at the 4th episode.
Oh,
and then
the first season, I mean, the second season is a big step up from the first season. You can absolutely tell the kinks that they notice that they work out from between, like the writer's strike in a weird way was kind of like a boon for this show because it gave them time to fix every problem they have in the first season, which is why I'm sort of like, my initial going into the show is like, it's kind of rocky and then it gets really good. And I'm like, no, it really is just the first season has problems that they then fix. And then it's like, an amazing 22 episodes.
But I can even tell you, because I put on just a few just to like remind myself of the beginning. I was actually going to try to watch more, but I only got through a few. And I'm a little surprised we didn't mention it during our Grow the Beard episode, but Brian Austin Green showing up as this sort of fourth heat to our like core characters of heroes, and not being truly a hero and being a little bit complicated and adding some of that like texture to this was probably what kept me going for season 1. And then season 2, the new formula really worked for me in a big way.
Yeah.
And
I mean, that first episode of
it.
season 2 is just sort of like, okay, the show's like totally different now in the best possible way. And then it just keeps going.
Incredible way. I love this. Mike wanted to rewatch it for this. We just have too much else going on. So we didn't get through a bunch of these, but big hit in the household. So if you're keeping track at home, this is two season series on Fox, canceled too soon, that featured a 90210 former heartthrob who comes in mid-season to improve things. Thanks, Derek.
Yeah, comes in midway through the first season to a show populated by like strong female brunette leads, and the 90210 actor is also a brunette former teen heartthrob that you would not expect to be seeing in a dramatic role, making his dramatic debut in this sci-fi genre show. The character heavily attached to the mythology, a very dark and complex character. Again, midway through season 1 on a show that then gets canceled at the end of season 2 when it's at its peak and at its best. Like, it's weird. I don't know why this is like the particular tastes that we have and why this is just our relationship. And I don't know if there's any other ones that are going to come up like this, but I'm desperate to find another Fox show from the 2000s that follow this exact same formula. I don't know if it exists, but I'm desperate to find it because it's wild that this has happened twice.
Truly. It's why do I have 2 times is what I'm asking everyone in the world right now. But I am very happy about it. I also love that our, Plex that we keep legal backups of things that Mike finds on the internet. It is almost exclusively films, and there are 2 like major television series and they're right next to each other, and it's True Calling and the Sarah Connor Chronicles.
Incredible. Look, they're they're interlinked in ways that no one in the world would except for us would understand. But
truly,
they're very different shows that are also at the same time very much on the same wavelength.
Yeah. So I have been excited to just a little bit behind the curtain inside baseball. We have sadly had to move the conversation about the Sarah Connor Chronicles a couple times. I have just not talked to Derek about it because I don't want to miss capturing our reactions on mic, but I have loved this now for like almost a year.
Yeah, it's really great. I'm excited for you to one day rewatch it because it is really rewarding on a rewatch because so much of this show is like, it was, I think, to its detriment as it aired because then people kind of fell off of it. But there's a lot of stuff where like they are playing the long game and kind of long conning you in certain ways. And your entire understanding of certain characters and storylines changes like by the time you end it, which is a dangerous game to play when you're already a show that like is kind of on the bubble. And they played it and it didn't really pay off in that they got canceled, but it did pay off in that it's an incredible like experience to watch it and then revisit it. So
yeah, and this is pretty universally loved. I didn't find a lot of people saying that they didn't care for this.
So I think it's a show that over time really got reclaimed a lot. I think as it was airing, people didn't hate it, to be clear. I don't think there was ever like a group of people out there that were sort of like, this show sucks. I think partially because Terminator 3 had happened and a lot of people didn't like it. So they kind of have an instant comparison to that. But I do think a lot of people did, like I said, kind of struggle with it. It's fun going back to reading reviews, even by like critics that I really like. Like there was an Alan Sepinwall. I was reading some of his old reviews as the show was airing. And like, I love him. He's an incredibly smart guy. He's so smart about TV. He's written great books about TV. But even he, like in his reviews, would be like, I don't quite understand what the show is doing. I don't really understand what this is, but I like this stuff. And like, that was kind of the vibe for a while because I think that I don't think people really understood what this show was doing until, again, you see the entirety of it. And I think it clarifies it. And I also think watching it like in a binge style, I think helps it a lot too.
Agreed.
I don't think the week to week with like months long breaks in between some episodes help this show either because it's already a pretty slow paced show. And so a lot of people, I think, would get frustrated about how long it took any storyline to go and how heady it would be, like Lena Headey, and like philosophical and talky and cerebral it would get, which I love. That's what I always loved about it. But like I said, even me at the time, it just sort of like, okay, sometimes we get like one extra action scene in here. And now I'm kind of like in retrospect, I'm like, no, I think that's what's good about it is that like they sort of draw you in with this idea of an action show and then end up having like all of the conversations and deep dives philosophically that you wouldn't have time for in a Terminator film because you have 31 hours instead of just 2.5 hours to talk about these things. And they find every little bit of like classic Terminator stuff that is like alluded to in the films, but can't have a lot of time to be explored. They find every little piece of that they can and explore it so in depth in this show. And like, I think that as time has gone on, and again, as there have been more and more Terminator movies that people haven't liked that have come out, people keep going back to this show and being like, why can't you make a Terminator movie that's like this? Like maybe this actually was kind of like the ideal for a post T2 Terminator thing. And I don't disagree. I love Terminator Dark Fate a lot, but I do think I still hold this in higher regard to that movie because I think it just explores the characters and I think finds the threads post T2 that no other Terminator thing anywhere has ever managed to do as well as this one does.
Yeah. I also liked Dark Fate a lot. We talked about this because that was like the last thing I watched before we talked last year was Dark Fate, and I loved it. And it's connected to this, which I think is also kind of interesting with Friedman being the story by on that one. But I do agree with your analysis that I would rather pick this series up than watch anything past T2.
Right.
Again,
I agree.
Especially a couple of them, you're like, if I had to watch Terminator Genesis again, I might leave this world. It was so rough.
The weirdest thing is like the DVDs for season 2, every single disc has the same trailer for Terminator Salvation at the top of it, because that's the other weird fucking thing about this is that like this show goes into production and immediately as soon as the show goes into production, they start going into production with Terminator Salvation, which like fucks this show up a little bit because people are constantly asking, well, what are the connections going to be? And like, well, well, maybe I'd rather just see the Terminator movie than watch the Terminator show and stuff. Like, I don't think that helps the show at all.
Agreed.
But that movie is like, I don't care for that movie much at all. I have things that I like about it, but I don't care for that movie at all. And it's so interesting comparing the two together and seeing like everything this show does right that I think that movie does wrong, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, this show I think kind of came out at like the worst possible time in like so many regards for the writer's strike and for like this is it's weird that the show is on fucking network television on the Fox network. It is produced like an HBO or Sci-Fi Channel show. I think a few years later, it would have been a streaming exclusive. It would have been like Netflix or something back when they were doing full 13 episode seasons that would run for like 7 years. It would be one of those. I think it would work really well.
Right.
And I think coming out at the same time as Terminator Salvation, like it was like the worst time because it was like there had been like a dearth of Terminator stuff. And then it's too long after T2 had come out, but also like coming out at the exact same time they're making another Terminator movie. Like it was just the worst combination of things for the timing of this show that did not help it, unfortunately. But yeah.
I mentioned earlier that my cultural knowledge of Summer Glau informed how I watched the pilot, but I will tell you, Derek, outside of my friendship with you, I had no idea the series existed.
Sure.
So I only really know Summer Glau, not even that. I don't know that I got the cultural knowledge that she was a Terminator. I think that I got the cultural knowledge that Summer Glau is going to do something important in this scene because she's a real actor.
Right.
And all of the other kids in this classroom are like New Mexico casting central. Like,
right.
So I am again so appreciative that you brought all of the Terminator franchise into my life, but it also feels a little weird for me doing the research for this one. How I was able to avoid this because of how big of a deal this was. I just think that maybe it was particularly a bigger deal if you were already connected in some way to Terminator.
Well, and I think it was again, I think it was big in the news and I think reasonably a hit in the first season, I think, because it was exciting that it had been a long time since people had seen a Terminator anything. It had been a very long time since Terminator 2, and people wanted some sort of antidote to Terminator 3. And so I think it was big at the time for a very particular finite moment. It was like, this is a big deal and a big thing. Look at these big actors that we're getting on this show. And like it being Summer Glau's next project post Firefly, like next significant project post Firefly. Like all of that stuff made it a big deal. And then it just kind of immediately just kind of disappeared, I think, from people's brains. I think, because I think audiences didn't like stick with it, and then the writer's strike happened, and then they move it to Fridays in season 2. So like, it was like big flash in the pan in terms of news coverage, and then just kind of faded into obscurity. There's a lot of people nowadays that like love sci-fi stuff that will just be like, oh, I heard that show was good and never watched it. There's a lot of people that are out there that are like that. I think that unfortunately is probably why you haven't heard of it, because not a lot of people are going to be recommending it to you, because there's a lot of people who just like either never finished it or like just never got to it, even though they maybe heard it was pretty good.
Right. But I guess the thing that maybe because Terminator wasn't a big deal for me, I think Terminator was a big deal, not just for people who were fans of it, but for Hollywood. Yeah. Because few things that we have covered on Pod have I read so much about the release of a series. There was so much like industry hype that came up during this that I didn't see for like This Is Us or
because Terminator 2 is like still to this day one of the biggest movies of all time that has ever existed in the history of film. Like we've never talked about a TV spinoff of something like that because those types of things aren't that common, Yeah.
Like sometimes they really suck. So
right.
I didn't notice to sign up for anything terrible.
Right.
Tomorrow, the year's biggest television event is finally here.
We can't stay here, John. It's not safe.
Not safe from who?
Come with me if you want to live.
Some people never give up. Some people always fight.
Terminator, the Sarah Connor Chronicles. Viewer discretion advised. The 2-night premiere event begins tomorrow at 8/7 Central on Fox.
Do you think about the future much?
Yeah, I think about the future a lot.
When is the time for me to live my life?
Hey, it's me, John Connor!
I don't have to prove anything to anyone.
Terminator, the Sarah Connor Chronicles premieres Monday, September 8th on Fox.
Let's talk a little bit about that creation, and we turn to Josh Friedman, who is credited as the creator. Before the Sarah Connor Chronicles, Friedman is a story contributor and screenwriter for films. He works on Chain Reaction in 1996, one of my favorite old sci-fi, not old sci-fi films, but one of my favorite 90s sci-fi films. And he does The War of the Worlds in 2005, fine, whatever, and Black Dahlia in 2006. In 2005, is when the announcements for the series being made begin. And this is where they announce Friedman as the writer and executive producer. And this man never stops talking about working on this series. There are so many interviews with
It's his pride and joy. I mean, he was, I also think this was the time when creators were had discovered that they can be very online and would be very online. This is the same time as Damon Lindelof is speaking and responding way too much about Lost. Yeah. And it's just dude, fucking stop reading what people say and just make your goddamn show. Friedman, I think, is sort of in the same boat. I think eventually TV people sort of started to realize we can't do this because it's making us worse and making our shows worse. We have to stop. But Friedman was definitely part of that contingent of sort of oh, we can talk to our fans now. Oh no, all I can do is talk to my fans and hear from how much they hate me and my work. And now I have to respond to that all the time and feel bad about myself. Yeah.
Yeah. I do wonder if Mr. Friedman does have a little bit of internet madness.
Yes.
Just based on some of the
definitely does.
Some of the things that happened to him in his career, especially. But for this, he writes the pilot, he writes episode 2, he writes the season premiere for season 2. Excellent episode. Yes. And the finale.
Such a good finale. Well,
so he's a great fucking writer. I've got to say that.
Yeah.
He didn't write the episode that we're talking about, but he's written some of the best ones. I didn't love episode 2 of season 1, but I loved everything else he wrote for this.
Sure. Does episode 2 have the 9/11 scene? I think that's the 9/11 scene, isn't that? Yeah. Look,
it's fine.
It's okay. They were figuring their things out early on.
I mean, I laughed at it because I'm a dark, horrible person.
Unfortunately, it is very funny how they do it. It's absurd that was on TV, but it's it was 2008. It was only 7 years after 9/11. There is a part, I don't know if we mentioned this, but a big part of the initial premise for the show is that it's the characters are from a few years after T2, but then they time jump into the future. So then the show can take place in around 2007, 2008. So Sarah Connor learns about 9/11 having missed it in one scene. And those are the rocky things in the first season that the show that are part of the growing pains that they have to get over. And once they have the characters acclimated to living in the late 2000s, which happens just a few episodes into the first season, they stop even bothering with the time lag bullshit, which Agreed. I do think is kind of the worst part of the show. I think that if the show was made now, they would have just let it be a 90s period piece, to be honest.
Yes. But I agree with you that they find their way out of it. I've got to say, time lag in particular is the sort of thing that sounds so good on a piece of paper, but then watching it, I'm like, oh my God, take an aspirin, get over it.
Oh no, you just learned what cell phones are. Oh, poor you. I know. It's that is the shit you have to just get past. And it's they're still couched in episode stories and character things that are really good. It's just, there'll be these little moments of Sarah Connor, in a store, complaining about well, does the phone, if I dial it, can I talk to someone on the other end? And I'm like, okay, y'all haven't even figured out what a smartphone is yet. And you're doing the old person yelling at cloud shit. I get it, but
it's incredible.
Move on.
So from here, he goes on to be a writer for films, Terminator Dark Freight. He's responsible for the story. He writes Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes and The Fantastic Four, First Steps.
Okay. Wild. Okay, great. Yeah.
I like that Kingdom of the Apes movie. I liked all of the new ones. They're fun. I haven't seen this new Fantastic Four yet, but people seem to really like it.
I like it, yeah.
And in television, this is where the uniquity of his journey comes in. He creates and executive produces for television's NBC's Emerald City with Matthew Arnold, no relation. Then he goes to work on TNT's Snowpiercer, where he leaves super dramatically. There's something about the vision of the show, the like main director like refuses to work in solidarity. He's both very public about it and also doesn't say anything real about it. So it's really complicated.
It doesn't surprise me because like given this show, this show being his vision and the show being the weirdest possible fucking version of a Terminator show because of his vision, I totally buy that he's the kind of guy that, like, especially when it comes to science fiction, is like, no, here's my take on it. It's not going to be what you want, but it's going to be good, and then he'll fight for it until he gets fired or quits. Like, yes. I believe it.
Yes, and I can't confirm any of this, but I can confirm the next story. So I'll just say there is a female executive who is at the center of this leaving the TNT Snowpiercer. So just remember that as I talk about what comes next.
Oh no.
He also goes on to work with David Goyer for the first season of the Apple TV Plus series Foundation, which is very good. There's a person who becomes attached to Foundation with Apple TV Plus, and it's Roxanne Dawson. She was the half Klingon on Voyager, and she has gone on to be a pretty amazing director of science fiction. Dawson and Friedman have some pretty public explosions at each other, and that is when Friedman leaves Foundation and he just goes and works with James Cameron on the Avatar series. That seems to be all that he's left to do. Wow. So it seemed like it was a very amicable leaving, except for this like conflict with Dawson and then this past conflict with a executive producer not named who was also female.
So we're getting at maybe there's some weird things with women that he might have.
I wonder that, which is such a bummer because he's writing for Sarah Connor in two of my favorite Sarah Connors.
Yeah.
Which is Dark Fate and this.
And I think this show writes women really well. As someone who's not a woman, I guess as best that I can say, I feel like this show has like a really amazing assortment of women characters throughout its entire run. So that's a little bit upsetting if that is the case.
Not confirmed. And of course, I'm going a little bit of a limb on the first story. I feel a little bit more grounded on the conflict with Dawson just because it was so big and public. And Dawson has stayed on with Foundation, as has Goyer, and they're doing great work together.
Yeah.
And Avatar is great. So good for Friedman as well.
I'm glad you brought that up, though, because that is always important to note. And it wouldn't be the first time that a creator who's done TV shows with like really amazing, women turns out to maybe not actually be great with women in real life.
Wow.
It doesn't seem like whatever it is the same extent. But, I don't know. I all speculation, I guess. Yeah. But the pattern is there, unfortunately. This show's good, regardless.
Just want it to be, the show's so good. And again, I've got to give him credit. Like, he wrote 3 truly fantastic episodes and was the showrunner for a series that I think even when it wasn't doing its best, it felt to me like maybe more money could have gotten it to the 10 that I was expecting.
Yes.
And so like the vision and the art was there.
Yeah. I still think when the show's good, it's like some of the best sci-fi TV I've ever seen. The fucking last 6 episodes of this show are God, maybe one of the best like 6 episode runs like in like all of genre television, I would argue. Like, I don't say that lightly. It's just like banger after banger and just like one fucking continuous, beautiful, upsetting, crushing arc leading to the end that I think is also an incredibly good finale. So
right.
Yeah.
Okay, so this series was one of 7 shows picked up by Fox in 2007. Mostly nothing burger on these other 6 shows, by the way. The only one that I really recognized was Back to You because it was that Kelsey Grammer, Patricia Heaton show. But whatever, it got an order for 13 episodes, but production was impacted by the 2007-2008 Writers Guild of America strike. When the strike began, 7 episodes were complete and 2 scripts were finished, with the remaining 4 episodes left unfilmed, unwritten. And so that is why there is a 9-episode first season.
Obviously, it impacts it because they don't get to do their full season. So the series ends up premiering during the strike. It was originally going to be alongside 24, which was huge at the time. I don't know how this show would have done alongside 24, but that was the plan. I think they were thinking Act 2 action shows, but this show, like the way that it does action is very different from 24, which is to say there's not actually that much action.
Yeah. I didn't find this in my research. I wonder which was supposed to be first. Was this? I think that 24 was going to lead in, and then Sarah Connor Chronicles was going to be after.
Yeah, I think Sarah Connor was always a 9 o'clock show. I think, if I remember correctly.
I do wonder if somebody who was like a Jack Bauer stan would be like, I'm going to stay around and watch these hot ladies hold guns because that.
Actually.
Not for
That's
nothing.
not a bad strategy. That might have actually helped it. Actually, it's a good point.
Not for nothing.
Yeah, that doesn't happen, obviously, just because the writer's strike throws everything out of whack. So it ends up premiering in January. They aired the first 2 episodes like 2 days out of the week, like in back-to-back days in 1 week. And then the finale is like a 2-hour finale. So it's only a 7-week run for the whole season, roughly, which I think gets it in people's eyeballs, and then they immediately forget about it after a few weeks, because then it's obviously off the air for a long time until the writer's strike ends and then season 2 is produced.
Yeah. And there is unfortunately misinformation out there about how the episodes came to be. I guess Thomas Dekker has talked about like how filming happened, and everyone cites that as like, oh, they changed everything for the writer's strike.
Yeah, because he talked about how they would film episodes out of order because they filmed the 9th episode
television
way earlier than they filmed some of the other episodes. And he just talked about that, which is like not abnormal for TV to film things out of order. But I think with the strike happening and the fact that the 9th episode does end on a cliffhanger that feels like it was intentionally meant to be a season finale. I think people, there's a lot of stuff out there that's sort of like, well, yeah, they reordered the intended airings of these episodes so it would end on a cliffhanger. No, it all aired in the intended order. It actually is just a coincidence that the last episode they had written already was going to end on a cliffhanger anyway. That was just going to lead into the next episode of the first season. It just ends up being the end of the season instead. So that's all.
Yeah, it's weird. There are a lot of stories from the 2007, 2008 writer's strike about like editing and adding a couple extra musical stings to really like push or oomph something that was maybe like a minor cliffhanger into feeling much bigger. And so it wouldn't surprise me if a little bit of that was also post-production that like gave you the extra feeling. Because when I watched it, I was like, oh, that was a great end of the season. It felt very intentional. And you can pull those emotional levers with honestly very little effort if you know what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. What a weird time that was. Like, even I know that, we had just had a writer's strike recently, but like that, because TV was so different in 2007 and 2008, like you could feel the impact a lot more. I remember I was in college at the time and I wrote for our campus newspaper, like an article about that. Just like, because I specifically remember, I think I wrote a review of the pilot episode of this, and I also was writing about the writer's strike and everything. And it's just like, it was so funny that even if you didn't know what the writer's strike was, you could tell that like TV was weird for a little while.
TV was weird for a little while.
Fascinating.
I bet the same thing, well, it probably has already happened. The COVID probably impacted this in very similar ways, that if we really took a macro view of this. That's
true. Yeah. COVID makes, I think that's the comparison people can make now is you could tell TV was different when you can tell when shows were produced during COVID, because that immediately makes them all feel different. That is a good point. We do have that comparison now.
But it is just wacky different with the streaming age. So, and I think the other thing that I saw in a lot of Friedman, because again, he talked a lot, in a lot of Friedman's conversations, he was like, everyone at the writer's strike wanted to talk to me because we were one of the only things on the air. Yeah. And at Company Town, Terminator, a big deal to company people. Like I bet it was on the mind of people in LA, not to mention LA had a huge marketing blitz on this series. They spent a ton of money in Los Angeles on this series.
Sure. I mean, look, if it's one thing the Terminator franchise loves, it's LA and doing things in Los Angeles. It's the fucking the cornerstone of the future war for the entire world. And after this like global apocalypse is Los Angeles.
One of my favorites pulled was they wrapped buses, and it was something like "Board this bus if you want to live." The Sarah Connor Chronicles.
That's amazing, actually.
Yeah, it's pretty cute.
I kind of love that.
Yeah. But speaking of like the big Terminator, there are some like weird rights issues that I didn't know where to put this, and I didn't know how to parse this, but like, no Terminators that appeared in a film technically appear in this series for whatever reason that is. So they had to design a different endoskeleton. I think it looks fine.
I mean, well, because they don't have to change. I mean, because all a Terminator endoskeleton is a fucking skeleton. So like,
Thank you.
just add some panels to it, and technically it's different. And I think that's the reason why in this show, we're gonna spoil stuff from this show, but like. So spoilers starting here, I guess, like there is a T-1000 that shows up in season 2, but it is a T-1001 is what they make clear at certain points. And like, I think that's their way to make it distinct. So it's like, look, if you put a T-1000, I think it probably is because the Terminator Salvation was going to be in production. So that was how they sort of divided out who had the rights to what. I don't know why like both things could use John Connor or whatever, but that stuff is always weird. And like exactly what is proprietary and what isn't. I don't fucking understand how some of that works or what they negotiate. But like, I think because that movie was in production, that probably did impact that show in this way. But like, I don't think it really causes any problems. And I think the idea of a T888, like it sounds cool.
It sounds
and
cool.
T-1001 sounds cool. Like, sure. Why not?
And truly and honestly, like, it's just kind of fun to be a little different. And so it never took me out. But if there was negative comments that I read on the internet about this, it is some pedantic folks about this issue in particular.
I mean, yeah, I will say that to the credit of the nerds, there are some things that this show gets a little bit wrong about like Terminator lore, and the timeline is sort of weird because there's inconsistencies between the timeline of like T2 and T3 and like how old John was. And this kind of follows T3's timeline, saying that that T2 took place in 97 and he was either 12 or 13, depending on who's talking, which like doesn't match up with T2. And like, it doesn't matter ultimately, you know, because it's all vaguely the 90s and now they're vaguely in the late 2000s. Yeah. Because even then the timeline, there's like times when they'll make points and dates and stuff. And like even the timeline of when it takes place currently in the present day, like doesn't really make sense. And it's like, that would imply that it's like 6 months between episodes or whatever. It doesn't fucking matter. Like whatever. It does. Whatever. In the end.
But I do think that that's part of the fun of fandom of any science fiction show, is just to have a little bit of fun talking about like where this all kind of comes together. And no show Bible can ever be as comprehensive as a random person on the internet.
Right. Exactly. Season 1 was enough of a hit, I think, and with that and the writer's strike, that they were kind of guaranteed a season 2. They originally got 13 episodes, but then it got extended to a full 22, which honestly, like, great. I'm glad that they got it, because I think that was a surprise that they got a full season order, to be honest. But I don't think the show was doing amazingly well at the beginning of season 2. I think it came back, even though I think the show came back very strong, a lot of audiences didn't. So mid-season, the series got forced into a 2-month break. And then after that, they're moved to a Friday night time slot, which people don't know as much now, but for a very long time, the Friday night death slot was a thing. A lot of shows, especially genre shows that weren't doing so well, or that the network didn't have a lot of faith in, would go to Friday night, because that's like, for a long time, was famously just a night where people just weren't staying in and watching TV because they were going out and partying, you know? Yeah. I think that was kind of the death knell for this show. I think that they kind of knew in the writer's room, they kind of knew that potential, which is why the finale, I think, kind of works really well as a series finale, as much as it is a season finale, even though if it wasn't intended to be the ending of the show, because they do end up canceling it. It also, I think, unsurprisingly, was a very expensive show to make. So I think Fox would also cite the cost, which I think it's expensive to make. And also it was a Warner Brothers show that was airing on Fox. So Fox was paying a lot more to license it and distribute it too. So I think like it kind of made sense. Like if this was airing on the WB, or I guess it would have been the CW by this point, it maybe would have been a different story, but you know, but for Fox, it just wasn't worth it. And I can't really blame them for that, because I'm not surprised that this was a show that wasn't doing gangbusters on the Fox network, unfortunately, as much as I love it. Like, it's not a surprise.
Well, and especially after being moved to Friday, like that, there was a really cute interview with Summer Glau being like, I'm excited. Like, maybe we'll find our audience. Like,
aw, girl.
No, you won't, honey. You won't.
Yeah. She's been through, she was on Firefly. She's been through this before. She's sort of like, people will love the show in 10 years, whatever. Like,
oh, poor Summer Glau. Not to mention you have to be on a Big Bang Theory episode in like 6 months after this episode airs.
Ew.
Oh, I know. It's bad. It's really bad. They're just lusting over her for being River Tam. It's really just the most disgusting.
She deserves so much better. She's so good in this show.
So good.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
I don't want to run away from you.
All he wanted was a normal life.
Being John Connor can be lonely.
But his destiny is to save us all.
No matter what happens, you see daylight, you run.
Now, the machines are here.
Riley! Riley!
The battle has begun.
I'm here to help you.
And for someone,
You have a plan?
I have a weapon.
this will be the final showdown. Terminator, the Sarah Connor Chronicles, all new next Monday on Fox.
So this time we are talking about season 2, episode 8, Mr. Ferguson is ill today. Wild, Derek, that I was like, why the fuck is this episode called this? And then it wasn't until my rewatching that those are the first words that come out of Cromarty's mouth. Just, I don't know why that wouldn't connect to me, but I am a little surprised that there isn't a little bit more of like a nudge to get the audience there, because it's a really smart title.
The show doesn't fucking hold your hand, I think. And like to its detriment sometimes. I think there's points when it's just like, you really have, there are points, even when I was rewatching it the last time, I was sort of like, I have to rewind some scenes because I don't fucking understand what the hell they're talking about. This show lets things be very, you just kind of have to figure it out, which I appreciate that. But it also means there are things like this where like they'll do something really smart.
Super smart.
Because it's like, if you're a fan on the internet, you can catch that and be like, oh, this is probably going to be the episode where Cromarty gets killed, probably. Or deactivated or demolished, whatever you want to say Terminator getting destroyed is. But like, if you're just a casual viewer, yeah, it's like, who the fuck is Mr. Ferguson? Why is he ill? Is that a movie reference? Like, what are you talking about? No, it's like from the pilot episode, the first line this fucking Terminator says when he has a different face and before you even know who he is. Like, it's hilarious. It's so good.
Oh, yeah. So I felt really dumb, but that made me really glad that I did go back and watch the pilot because then I felt a little less stupid.
Yeah.
But the original air date on this one was November 10th, 2008. And the synopsis per IMDb: Cromarty kidnaps Sarah and races to Mexico to find John. When Derek, Cameron, and Ellison discover what has happened, they come to their defense, which leads to one final deadly confrontation with Cromarty.
Yes, this episode was written by Daniel Thompson, who was then credited as Daniel T. Thompson at the time. He began his television writing career as a writer's assistant on Birds of Prey in 2002. And then he wrote on MTV's Punk'd after that. So in like in a weird, like, in a weird zone for that. Birds of Prey to Punk'd. And then becoming a script supervisor on Smallville. I can see Birds of Prey to Smallville. That makes a lot of sense. Punk'd is an odd sort of place.
And he was on a lot of episodes of Punk'd. Like, he was sort of
odd.
The writer on Punk'd.
Very odd. But Birds of Prey to Smallville to Terminator the Sarah Connor Chronicles, you can track that pretty easily. They're also all Warner Brothers things. So like he's in the zone for that. He joins as a staff writer in season 2 and writes 3 episodes of this show. After Terminator's done, he goes on to write 3 episodes of the Melrose Place reboot, 6 episodes of Once Upon a Time, which all kind of feel in the same zone. I know Terminator like does kind of stand out among those, but all of them have sort of teen angsty kind of elements to them, you know. He becomes a producer in seasons 2 to 3 of Once Upon a Time, and then does the same for Batwoman, writing 4 episodes and becoming a producer. So he's kind of, he's very much in like the TV genre zone.
Today, he's the creator, executive producer, and showrunner of the ABC series Will Trent that I had never heard of in my entire life.
I had heard of it, but I don't know anything about it. I think I'd heard of it because I heard the title of it, but I can't tell you anything about it. And I'm looking at it, and I didn't know it was a police procedural with a bunch of people. Okay, sure. I don't know.
It is a police procedural that broadly concerns the fact that he was like a foster care young person child, and now he's trying to work to fix the system so that kids will be safe forever.
Oh, that's nice.
But there's a dog, and the dog features very heavily in the series promotion. Very Alan McBeal dancing baby sort of situation. So maybe a little bit less serious than the procedural that it sounds like I'm describing.
Okay. Sure. I have no more thoughts on that.
Me neither. I didn't sometimes I will try to watch weird things for this podcast, and I didn't for this episode, which is a shame because we're going to talk about some weird things as this cast gets unfurled.
Dude, seriously. So let's get to that. So directed by Michael Nankin. This is his only directed episode of Terminator: The Sarah Connor Chronicles, oddly. He is kind of a workhorse director, so that's probably why he just pops into shows in and out, right? So he's a co-creator, weirdly, speaking of weird credits, he's the co-creator of the 1990s Flipper TV show, sometimes called The New Adventure of Flipper, which I did watch. I did watch that show.
Yeah, I watched it too. It's Lassie in water, so you know how I feel about this.
So you just so it's not that you thought the Lassie show was like badly made. You just hate the idea of children being
formula.
friends. You just hate the idea of children being friends with animals who are smart.
Yes. Yeah, the whole formula doesn't work for me.
Do you hate animals or do you hate children or both?
Only together.
Okay, only together. Kids shouldn't have pets, is what you're saying. Okay. Kids shouldn't have pets who rescue them from danger, I guess.
That's
is
correct.
What it is.
That's correct.
Got it.
But
the pets
I do
should just
think
let them die, is what David said. Lassie should have let Timmy drown in a fucking well, is what he said.
Yeah, eat it, you little shithead. Here's the deal, though. I think I have seen every episode of The New Adventures of Flipper, or just 1990s Flipper, since it is referred to both ways in so many places.
It's funny. I couldn't tell you a single episode plot, but sure, whatever. Yeah. But also, he's done more than that. He was a creator and executive producer on the series Defiance, the Fox version of The Exorcist, and also Van Helsing. Is Van Helsing, was that a show?
Yes, it was the CW, Van Helsing.
How did I miss that existed?
Possibly the Fox Van Helsing.
It is sci-fi, actually.
Oh, okay.
That's why I was like, if there was a WB Van Helsing, you're telling me I would be all over that shit. Are you kidding me? No, this is a sci-fi show, which is why I had not heard of it.
This is why, as we'll go on, Derek, I started to put the networks in front of all these shows because there are some real weird ones that I had never heard of before.
Yeah. He's done other stuff too. Early in his career, he had written and directed for 8 episodes of Life Goes On. One of those earned him a few awards and recognition. So
yeah. And I don't know if do you remember Life Goes On? Was that anything that you messed with?
I don't think so.
It was a show that centered on a character with Down syndrome.
Oh, okay.
It was pretty remarkable. And the episode that he won all these awards for, especially from advocacy groups, is where the main character meets an older person with Down syndrome who's like living his ideal life. And it was, I don't know, it was just really well reviewed. I thought about watching it and seeing if we could cover it on pod, just because Life Goes On was a pretty big deal. Starred Patti LuPone.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
okay.
I know. She hated her on-screen husband so much that she like begged for the series to get canceled.
I love that.
Like,
that's hilarious.
They didn't appear in the same shots together in season 4. Like just wild Patti LuPone drama there.
Incredible. Okay, this cast. Dude, this cast is fucking incredible. Our Sarah Connor this time, Lena Headey. Before we even talk about Lena Headey, who a lot of people should know who she is by this point, I'm sure. What are your feelings? This is your first time seeing another Sarah. No, you watched Terminator Genesis, so you've seen Linda Hamilton and you've seen Emilia Clarke. We don't have to talk about Emilia Clarke. So this is your first time seeing a what is considered to be a good Sarah Connor. What are your feelings on Lena Headey's take on Sarah Connor?
I absolutely love her. I think that in particular,
really
her voiceover work is so fucking good in this series. I mean, it is a little bit like, here's the moral of the episode, which is fine.
Look, some of her monologues are not the best written monologues ever made, but some of them are really good. Some of them are really good.
But it is her delivery, I think, that is giving me so much, even when I didn't necessarily care about the words that she was saying. Her tone is so wonderful and fantastic, and it is the right blend of mother, absolutely batshit woman, and like the Hamilton Sarah Connor at the end of T2. And I don't ever feel like she's emulating Hamilton. I think she's doing a great job of making this role her own. And I thought she was delicious. I anytime Sarah Connor's not on screen, the audience should be asking, where's Sarah Connor? And I was.
Yeah, yes, this is one of the things that got a lot of criticism actually when the show first started, is that a lot of people, when this casting was announced, they did not like Lena Headey as being the one in the role for Sarah Connor. And I think there's a couple of reasons for that. Like prior to this, like everyone I think knows her now, but I think prior to this, she'd been acting since she was 17, but like mostly in like supporting roles and stuff like that. She hadn't really had a big break. And I think she's she's British too. So like probably in a lot of stuff in the UK that like Americans wouldn't have seen. Her big role is as Queen Gorgo in 300, right? That's what people at the time knew her from. That was where I first saw her. And I was excited to see like the lady from 300 is in Terminator. That feels like it's giving a lot of, it feels like, getting a movie actor in the role of Sarah Connor felt like that they were treating this the way that they should be treating it. But I think at the time people watch 300 and they're sort of like, I mean, like, she's like cool, but like she's just a lady in a movie full of big, huge, muscly men kicking people, right? Like that movie is not, she's the most woke movie ever made. Like she's just as kind of the wife who's standing around, and she's like a cool wife, but she is just the wife in that movie. You know what I mean?
Well, and she's like notably naked. Like that was like sort of the big thing about Gorgo is like she is hot. Like, yes, but like it was sort of a like male insert fantasy situation. But she's also very good in 300. I will say
she is. But I think that people saw her sort of like, this isn't a badass though. And I think that one of the things too is that like Linda Hamilton, her build is bigger than Lena Headey's build is naturally. Like Linda Hamilton, when she puts muscle on, she puts fucking muscle on. Lena Headey, I think just doesn't have the same frame that Hamilton does. So even though she is ripped in this show, she's not ripped. She doesn't come off the same way as Linda Hamilton did. And I think if she were to put a lot of bulk on, that's bulk that she has to carry for like a 22 episode season that could theoretically go on for years. Like that's not healthy to do through your body. So people looked at her sort of like, she looks too skinny. She doesn't look like she's badass enough. And also she was playing Sarah a little bit softer than Linda Hamilton did, which I think was a conscious choice because Linda Hamilton in T2 is playing Sarah Connor at her most insane, upset, and angry. Yes. This specifically takes place years after she sort of calmed down a bit, like, and kind of, and what makes her interesting, complex, and sometimes kind of scary in this show is that like she is actually like really trying to be like a calmer, more normal person, and then these bouts of like insanity and obsession come out sometimes. Yes. And like that is how this show plays her really well. But people watch the first episode, they're sort of like, she's not screaming and angry enough. So this isn't our Sarah Connor. And a lot of people were mad at her for that. I do think people got over it as the show went along, but she faced a lot of hate early on because of that.
I despise that because I think she's fantastic, but she almost is a little bit more Sarah Connor 1.5 because you're right. She isn't being pushed to T2. Like no one should be pushed to T2. The whole thesis of the film is like, this woman is crazy.
And even Linda Hamilton was sort of like, that really kind of broke me. Like you can't sustain that for like a weekly television show that again is meant to go for like 22 episodes a season, potentially for 5 years. Sorry, that's nothing moral or ethical about putting an actor through that.
And she's softer, but she's not naive Linda Hamilton from Terminator. No. The first film. So it is sort of cutting the difference, and I think that's smart to do.
She's kind of a bitch in this show, and I love it. Like she is so snarky to people and so mean all the fucking time. It's just like in a way that sometimes is a little bit scarier, honestly.
But that's good. I mean, if you're Sarah Connor, that's sort of how you have to be with your shithead son who wants to do stupid things.
Yeah. And I believe my understanding is that like she said, like I know she said that she'd seen the Terminator before, like when she was a teenager, but like if I remember correctly, I don't think she like went back and watched Linda Hamilton's performance for this. Like she was sort of like, cool, I'm just going to kind of do my own thing and not try to imitate what she's doing, which I think is smart. And I think lends to this being a really unique Sarah Connor performance that still feels very true to the character. Mm-hmm. Before 300 had even catapulted her into the role, she was just one of many, many folks considered. So like regardless of 300, she was in consideration.
Friedman in his interview says that they considered 300 to 400 people. Beach and Katzman, who were the casting directors, say 100 in a Hollywood Reporter article. Gotcha. And so this might just be a case of a little bit of exaggeration from Friedman. Yeah. 400 actors seems like a lot to audition for a single role. If I'm being really honest, 100's a lot to audition for a single role as well.
Yeah, but it is Sarah Connor, so you know.
It is Sarah Connor. Yeah. But I might go with the Beach and Katzman interview on on a little bit more conservative at 100 folks considered.
Yeah. But yeah, apparently Friedman said a friend of his recommended her and told him that there was no second choice other than Lena.
Yeah.
Which is right. I don't think anybody else could have done this as well as she did.
I think she's fantastic. And I wish I could say that this amazing role that she was in was what catapulted Lena Headey into the stratosphere that we know her today. But after Terminator Sarah Connor Chronicles ends, she kind of goes back to doing the same types of supporting roles as usual until her friend Peter Dinklage recommends her to be cast in Game of Thrones. And that is probably where everyone knows Lena Headey from now.
Yeah. It's very funny, which is how we get to a point where there have been 2 lead Game of Thrones actresses who have played Sarah Connor.
Isn't that wild?
Crazy?
So
Isn't that
stupid.
weird? Like before and after, like Lena Headey did it before Game of Thrones. Emilia Clarke did it post Game of Thrones. Like flanking Game of Thrones with Sarah Connors. How weird is that?
I would have loved to know if they ever talked about their experience.
They had to. Right? Like, what would those conversations look like, though?
Who knows? I mean, and I know that I do, before everyone writes in, I know they weren't always filming together. I know that Game of Thrones shot in lots of different places, including just down the street from me.
But I'm sure they were like in press junkets together and stuff like that.
At some point in time, you're stuck together with a little plate of like mini sandwiches. You gotta be like, hey, what was it like playing Sarah Connor?
Yeah. And then probably the conversation is probably like, well, one of us is getting like $1 million and the other one of us did it on network television. So, you know, and you know what? The wrong one got the bigger paycheck in my opinion. No offense to Emilia Clarke. I love her. It's not her fault. She was deeply miscast in that movie.
Agreed. And we talked about this, like, again, I don't want to rewatch it, but like there were okay things about the film. It just, she was the wrong pick and the wrong script for her.
Yes. She did what she could with a role that was not meant for her.
Yeah.
But you know what the role was meant for Lena Headey was Sarah Connor.
Yes. Since Thrones wrapped, she has done voice work for Wizards, Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Infinity Train, and a couple Masters of the Universe. She most recently starred in the AMC Plus original series Beacon 23, for which she was also the executive producer.
Yes, and she made her feature debut as writer-director in 2023 with The Trap. Not Trap starring...
Josh Hartnett,
Josh Hartnett, not that one, but The Trap.
Yes.
Which won Best Feature at the Sevilla Indie Film Festival. So good for her. I'm glad that she's doing stuff.
Good for her.
Yes. Thomas Dekker. I fucking love Thomas Dekker as John Connor. He is my favorite John Connor out of all of them. That's counting Edward Furlong, counting Christian Bale, counting Jason Clarke in Genesis.
No.
His John Connor is so good. And I think part of it is being played by a little gay boy. I think really helps a lot. Thomas Dekker, I already knew who he was because I had seen him on Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, the TV show, because he played Nick Zielinski in that show. I remember I liked him a lot in it. So I was very excited, like, when he starts showing up in genre stuff, and especially in this show. But he'd been an actor. He'd been a child actor all his life. Started at age of 5 with Young and the Restless. And then The Nanny. He was on ER, Star Trek Generations, Star Trek Voyager, 3 episodes of Seinfeld, a bunch of voice roles. Like, he was Littlefoot in a lot of the straight-to-video Land Before Time sequels. He was Fievel in American Tail sequels. So he was like one of the go-to kids. And then of course in 97, like I said, he plays Nick Zielinski in Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. And I think the TV show specifically. And like, you can tell he is one of those kids who's kind of like a precocious child actor. I think that's why he was getting these voice roles, because he's very articulate. He sounds a lot wiser than he actually is, you know? So it makes sense that he's like one of those types of child actors, but he always kind of stays in like either the TV or like direct to video or like supporting character roles for most of his childhood. He never becomes like a big level child actor that's recognizable, which is probably why he, like, you know, doesn't have all of the problems that a lot of other child actors have.
Right.
Because he wasn't as much in the spotlight until he got a lot older. So once he becomes like actually like an adult, he starts showing up in like the, you know, a later season of Seventh Heaven. And then a lot of people, I think, start to recognize him on Heroes as Zach, who is Hayden Panettiere's friend, who's like a character I think a lot of people really loved in the first season, who kind of vanishes is after a certain point because he takes the role in Sarah Connor Chronicles.
Agreed. And I am one of the people who love Zach because Zach reads as the queer best friend of Claire.
Right. Well, whether
that's intended or not, that's how he reads. That's the thing that's
always funny about Thomas Dekker is that he doesn't come out until 2017, but everyone was like, this kid is gay, right? Every character he's playing reads as like closeted or like kind of queer in some way. And like, he maybe didn't know that about himself or wouldn't, it didn't come out about it until much later. But I do think it informs a lot of his performances in a good way. I think that it actually makes every character he plays better. I think John Connor works so well in this show because I do think like kind of playing John as a closeted queer kid just fucking works for the character,
Yes.
Like John Connor is like a kid with a big secret. He's someone that like doesn't fit in, has the world like telling him who he's supposed to be while he's constantly just trying to be his authentic self and not really even knowing what his self is because of all the pressures of the world around him. His best friend is his mom. Like he's never shown, he's like, as much as this show tries to force like girlfriends on him and like sexual escapades, you never actually see him get actually sexual with a girl. You don't see him kiss girls. You don't see him have a sex scene. His like girlfriend that he has for a long time in this show, they like barely hold hands,
Thank
like
you.
It's very chaste. The closest there is to a sex scene is him like sticking his hand inside of Summer Glau's chest to like feel a sensor. And they play that as erotically as possible in a way that I think is really fun and interesting. But like it never reads like he actually wants to like fuck any of these women in a way that I think benefits it because it makes him more interesting as a character because suddenly it's like, oh, he's not like a horny teen making bad decisions. He is like a kid who's trying to understand himself, doesn't understand himself, and is pushing back against the world to figure himself out, to like get away from the people who are putting all these pressures on him, which is like a very big part of the queer experience,
Well, outside of whatever is going on with Cameron, and I know that there's a lot of thoughts and feelings.
There's a lot of thoughts and feelings about that. Yeah.
But like, it's gay to have a robot girlfriend. I also will put that out in the world.
Yes.
But like outside of that, everyone he dates is kind of his mom. So like,
it's so true though.
Every girlfriend is kind of Sarah Connor. So
it's so true.
He's
got to type.
Very, very gay thing to do. I also, I do love Dekker. I love this reading of John Connor because there's so much to him there.
Yes.
I like Furlong just fine, and I think that's the only other competitor for an enjoyable John Connor experience.
I agree.
If we're being honest.
I think Furlong is great in that movie, but like he does have to play like he's playing a kid, that's his role in the movie. I think he's really amazing at it. And I do think that Dekker is unlike Hetty, who, was trying to not pull stuff from Hamilton. I do think Dekker is pulling from Furlong's performance and characterization for this, but I think he evolves it in a way and then eventually makes it his own. So
yes, I was constantly looking for him to like push back his floppy hair because it almost felt like he had learned that mannerism and yet was having the like most mid 2000s haircut that has ever been on a man in his life.
Like it's instead of growing the beard, it's cutting the hair in this show.
Yes. After Sarah Connor Chronicles, he actually makes his feature debut as a writer-director, and he also stars in this 2008 film Whore with Megan Fox. Hedy co-stars as his mom in the film.
Also a gay thing to have the same person play your mom and be in a movie with Megan Fox. That's like the queerest thing you can do, to be honest.
Yeah. The film sounds pretty interesting. I wasn't able to watch it, but we got a legal backup of it.
Nice.
And it is about Hollywood actors and actresses who have to perform prostitution to make rent because they can't score roles.
Cool.
Yeah. Sounds like a pretty fucking heady thing to do.
Yeah.
Fuck, we're going to keep running into this. Pretty fucking wild thing to do after being on a network television series.
Yeah, seriously. From there, he gets a lot of film parts, including queer roles in the 2010 film Kaboom, 2011 film Cinema Verite, and then he's in the main cast for the CW show The Secret Circle and main cast in Fox's Backstorm, who he's playing Rainn Wilson's character's gay roommate. So everyone, I think, was catching on, including him, and then he actually does officially come out as gay in 2017.
Yeah, and I haven't watched that CW Secret Circle, but it's about witches, and he looks like the gay witch.
Right, of course.
Okay.
Of course.
Well, maybe he's not, but like that's what he looks like on the promotional.
No, I don't know.
materials.
I actually never watched it either, but like he probably is.
Probably is.
Even if
He's
he's
wearing-
not.
he's wearing-
even if
He's wearing eyeliner in the promotional shots. So,
Sure.
but like guy witches can do that. Like anyone can wear eyeliner. It's incredible. It makes your eyes look bigger.
And next,
Oh,
Summer Glau as Cameron. Summer Glau, I people obviously like her for like, you know, various genre reasons, but like I feel like people maybe like pigeonhole her a little too much into being like, she's the wafy girl who all the creepy men on the internet fawn over. But like, she is genuinely really good, and she is incredibly good in this show.
Yes.
Like a performance that grows and evolves over the course of it, and is like almost drastically different in her performance by the end of the show than it is at the start. She's such an interesting, like it could come off as being like, oh wow, big twist on Terminators. Instead of being like a big hulking man, it's like a slender petite woman. Whoa. But like they also cast her because she is genuinely good, and her way of like the cold, like this cold emotionless robot that also like has this tinge of like, you understand a little more than we're giving you credit for. Maybe you do have emotion, but maybe you don't. We don't, like, there's always something under the surface and you don't quite know what she's doing or what she's getting at or what her motivations are. And like, it's hard to pull that off. And she really, really does, while also like making her a sympathetic character, even while she's kind of a monster sometimes. It's really, really cool.
Yeah. She's one of my favorite parts about this series.
Yes,
it also made it redefined how I think about Glau, because if I'm being honest, River Tam was like my least favorite part of Firefly.
I agree with you. Well, and I think like, cause I think it's kind of a thankless role, and it's a bummer.
It is.
That's why I feel like she kind of deserves her flowers. I think like, cause I do think that people only think of her as someone who can be like the quiet and weird one,
right?
Who's kind of awkward. And it's just like, and this show is like riffing on that in some ways, where like she's quiet and weird and awkward because she's a fucking robot.
Right.
But like, it's such a wildly different performance than anything I've ever seen her give in anything else.
Yeah.
Her first audition was for the role of the White Ranger in Power Rangers Wild Force in 2002. She was the second choice, and the role went to Jessica Rae, who's really wonderful in that role. Summer Glau would have been too good for that show because it's like one of the worst acted Power Rangers shows in the show's history. And that's not even like, it's not even the fault of the actors in that season, who I think the actors themselves are fine, but they're directed like famously kind of badly. Like they're all directed to like talk like they're like 4-year-olds. It's fucking weird. That season's not terrible, but I think it would have ruined her career if Summer Glau got that role, to be honest. But she's formally trained as a ballerina, which she uses quite frequently in many of her roles. She was on an episode of Angel, Waiting in the Winds, where she played, of course, a ballerina. And then I think that gets her noticed by Joss Whedon, which then gets her cast on Firefly, famously as River Tam, which is still the role that I think the majority of people know her from at this point.
Yes, if not from Firefly, then from Serenity, which I think maybe was an even bigger vehicle for her performance, because I think she's much better in the film than she is in the show.
She gets more to do in the movie than in the show.
That's why.
Yeah. I think riding on, you know, her Firefly fame from there, she gets a few roles, like recurring roles on the unit. She is really good on the 40-100, but also kind of, again, playing kind of a River Tam kind of riff on that show. So then when she gets cast in the Terminator SARAH Connor Chronicles, like, again, when we talked about it, like it kind of makes sense. You can see the track to get her onto another sci-fi show where she plays kind of a quiet, awkward, cold person that has a secret, but it's a wildly different performance. Her name is Cameron, obviously an homage to James Cameron, one of many times characters or homages to names from the Terminator franchise. She hadn't seen any of the Terminator movies and was like, I don't really have the Terminator look, so I don't know why I'm getting cast in this, but
I love that.
Here I am.
Because she, like me, was probably like, Terminator, that is Arnold Schwarzenegger. And she looked in the mirror and she was like, that's not me. I don't look like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Right. I remember this happening too, because it was like, obviously it was meant to be a surprise. You get Summer Glau and then it was going to be like, whoa, twist. You wouldn't expect her to be a Terminator. But then Lena Headey is like, oh, by the way, we have Summer Glau as a Terminator on our show. Isn't that cool? It's like, well, cat's out of the bag, I guess.
I love that so much.
Yeah. But then they just went hard on it. All the promos then would literally have the scene of Summer Glau saying, "Come with me if you want to live," anyway. So like, it's fine. I think that probably brought more people to the show than if they kept it a secret, to be honest.
Yes. And it's honestly a really good sequence, and it's a good delivery of a nostalgia line. It really is.
This show is very restrained about the references, but it deploys them really, really well whenever it does.
It's late in season 2, but I love when she goes "hasta luego." It's so it's like stupid awesome. It's so great. I loved it so much.
Yeah. Yes. Since Terminator, she's had a recurring role in Dollhouse, still was staying in the Joss Whedon zone at the time. She's in all 10 episodes of the superhero show The Cape, which is really only, I think, remembered because of Community's references to it.
Yep.
She was in all 12 episodes of the Jesse Bradford thriller Sequestered. She had a recurring role on Arrow as well. So she's very much been in the genre zone since then.
Well, next up, we have Brian Austin Green as Derek Reese. So he started as a child actor. He was in 3 seasons of the CBS soap A Knots Landing. And as famously discussed here on the podcast, he was in the pilot for Good Morning Miss Bliss that didn't end up going to air because they retooled the show. He does a few TV movies, but in 1990, he is cast as David Silver in Beverly Hills 90210, where he will go on to appear in all 292 episodes and in the first 3 episodes of the spinoff Melrose Place.
Wow. Yeah. To this day, I think still what he's best known for is 90210.
I would agree, though I don't know that you look back on that fondly because you were supposed to sort of hate David Silver. It's just like, because he's sort of like a nerd. He's an outsider. Yeah. Then he comes into his own in like season 4. Mm-hmm. But whatever. It did inform a lot of characters to come in teen soaps. Yeah. So.
And also he's beautiful and has only gotten much hotter with age.
Oh, I totally agree now.
With every passing year.
David Silver would not have been for me. Derek Reese is definitely.
He's so hot in this show, dude. Okay, it's truly a gift. There are not many Dereks, spelled Derek, in media that exist. And even fewer of them are like good characters. The fact that I share my namesake with a hot man played by Brian Austin Green, a hot man with beautiful eyes. He is also the brother of Kyle Reese, one of my favorite characters in like media. He's also just like a good fucking character.
Yes.
And this means that there are many points in the show where Sarah Connor says my name. And I just think that that's beautiful.
That's great. I love it. Derek.
Yeah. There's points where people are like, Derek's dead. And I'm like, I hope that when I die, someone just screenshots that. And that's how my death announcement is. They just screenshot someone saying Derek's dead and passes it along.
I meant to pull this, but I did take a screenshot of the title card Derek's story from the episode that I was going to put that up when you told your tale about Sarah Connor Chronicles.
Like anytime I ever get a piece of writing published, I'm going to announce it with that screenshot, Derek's story.
Yes.
In the Terminator, in the classic Terminator font. It's perfect.
Well, while Brian Austin Green is doing, fucking all of this 90210, he's doing some other things as well. But the biggest thing he's doing is being Brian Austin Green, who is on Beverly Hills 90210. So even when he's drawing roles, and sort of the sort of example of this that I could pull was he appears on Sabrina the Teenage Witch as Chad Corey Dillon, a teen heartthrob. And that's the shtick, is they just giving him 3 names. He's whatever, fine. Sure. But he does do some voice acting. He's Johnny Storm / the Human Torch on Fantastic Four, the animated series. And then he is on Biker Mice from Mars as Rimfire, the sort of hapless guy who always gets kidnapped.
Yeah, Rimfire. Also, that show is so fucking gay, and you have a character named Rimfire.
I can't get into it.
Yeah, let's keep going. For this episode's already going to be really long, so.
I know. He continues acting, but he briefly tries to become a rapper, releasing an album in 1996, which Green himself called a jumble of shit, and The Onion named the least essential album of the 1990s.
He seems to have a sense of humor about himself, so I appreciate that.
He does a lot of other bit roles, character appearances, but then he's in the main cast with Freddie Prinze Jr. on the 1-season show Freddie before he is cast in the Sarah Connor Chronicles.
Yes. After Sarah Connor Chronicles, I do think that, like, unlike, like Hetty, it didn't really affect her career. This one, I think it did, because this
Agreed.
show proved to people that like Brian Austin Green could be a real actor, and he starts getting more dramatic roles. It's right after this. So his role on Smallville is like directly because of his role on Terminator, because he plays Metallo on Smallville. So he goes from this show fighting cyborgs to becoming a cyborg on Smallville. And he's really fun. They like completely rewrite that character around him so that he can like basically be like an anti-hero on the show rather than just a villain, because they just want Brian Austin Green to be like around more. And he's really good on it, you know, but that's how he starts to get stuff like that. He's cast in season 7 of Desperate Housewives. He's in the lead role for the one season TBS show Wedding Band. So like this show, I think, kind of gets him into more of a dramatic TV zone.
Yes. In 2021, Green is guest cast on the pilot and then does a couple of recurring appearances in the Charlie Sheen show Anger Management, which was what he produced immediately following his dismissal from 2.5 Men. Sheen's co-star Selma Blair was very outspoken about Sheen's behavior, and Sheen demanded that she be fired. Lionsgate complied, and the show's cast is incredibly mixed up as a result, which I guess is good news for Green, because he gets elevated to main cast after Selma Blair is dismissed from the show.
Yeah, just so weird. I mean, Charlie Sheen, just like such a chaos agent, but at least Brian Austin Green got to benefit from him. As far as I can tell, Brian Austin Green is a cool guy, I guess. I've never heard anything bad about him. So
it's wild who's on Anger Management, because it's a pretty good cast of people, and then like Charlie Sheen is there. It's really weird.
It's very weird. Very weird. Very weird.
But more recently, along with his co-stars, Green was on all 6 episodes of that sort of meta BH 90210 series.
The one where they all played themselves. Yeah.
Playing themselves, doing a remake. It was kind of weird, but like he did it. And then he had a 4-episode arc as Darlene's friend on The Connors. And that means that he was part of the live show of The Connors.
Okay, I guess we have to do that episode so we can get another Brian Austin Green thing in here.
Yes.
Yeah, I think what's so interesting about Brian Austin Green coming on, because like we said, he comes in about halfway through the first season, which is only like 5 episodes in. He is the brother of Kyle Reese, who obviously is Michael Biehn's character in the first Terminator film. What's really interesting is that like Josh Freeman initially wanted Kyle Reese to be a series regular, because a lot of what the show deals with is like, if the Terminator franchise is predicated on trying to change the future, then there are going to be consequences of the future changing. And one of those consequences could be that there's like another version of Kyle Reese that travels back into the past. And it would be interesting. I do think this show would handle it really well, considering how heady this show kind of gets. And like dealing with like, oh, Sarah has to meet another version of Kyle Reese, and it's not the version she fell in love with, you know. I think the trouble is that there's already a lot of complicated time travel stuff in the show. And I think that maybe if they would do that later on in the season, it'll be fine. But in the first season, I think it would have been too much for audiences to handle. They were still getting used to the Connors being in the 2000s, like 8 years into the future or whatever. And so, you know, I think understandably they strike that idea, but they like the idea of having a connection to Kyle Reese, who is a character so important in the first movie that kind of like, because he dies in the first movie, gets kind of lost throughout the rest of the franchise. So that's why they invent the character Derek Reese, his older brother, bring him in. They can still kind of play the same things of like this weirdness and like maybe sexual tension with Sarah Connor, you know, but at the same time, she doesn't trust him. Like it's a really cool idea that like, and no other Terminator thing has really played with Kyle Reese in that way.
Yeah, I think that what we end up getting with Derek Reese really delivers on the promise of like, what if Kyle Reese but different?
Right.
We just don't call him Kyle Reese. And I'll have to concur with you that I think the sexual tension between Hetty and Green is so fucking good.
It's good. But the show's awesome. But the show's so mean about it. It's just sort of like, you're never going to get this resolution.
I know.
We're going to take it away from you in like the cruelest possible way. In fact,
I know. But they are fantastic. Anytime they are on scene together, I am really in my happiest place. Not that I don't like Decker, and Decker and Hetty are really, really good together too. But I think that when mom and dad are talking is kind of like the most fun I'm having.
Yeah, this show like is more of an adult show than it is a teen show, which means that when it's adults on screen together, that's when the show really sings.
Agreed. Yeah.
Garrett Dillahunt as Cromartie. I fucking love Garrett Dillahunt so much. He is one of those guys where, like, if you're not sure if you know who he is, you have seen him in something. He is all over the fucking place, especially on television, in like every show you could ever imagine, sometimes in minor roles, sometimes in major roles. He's all over the place, and he's always good in all of them. He started on Broadway before moving into TV. He showed up on NYPD Blue. He showed up on The X-Files. He showed up on Millennium. He's a few TV movies before being added to the main cast of the one-season Showtime show Leap Years, and then also the Norm Macdonald Fox sitcom A Minute with Stan Hooper. So a weird collection of stuff right from the get-go. I think a lot of people will recognize him from Deadwood. He had recurring roles in that. He shows up in the 4400 for a while. He has a really a good role in that show as well. So, you know, also alongside Summer Glau. And he's literally cast as Jesus Christ in the Book of Daniel, that NBC mid-season replacement, which is very funny.
and will show up again in this cast. Is so wild.
So funny. He shows up in the HBO Surf Noir show, John from Cincinnati. I just read that for the first time. What does Surf Noir mean?
Derek, I was losing my mind at this point in time in the background for these actors, because I was like, this man has been in so many things. How do I pull out the truly unique things? And when I read what this was about, this is about surfers who like solve crime.
Cool. You know what? We don't need to say any more on that. Perfect. That's all I need to know. After that, of course, because of being on the HBO Surf Noir show, they're like, we got to get him on Terminator, the Sarah Connor Chronicles, of course. So he shows up a few episodes into season 1 as sort of like the new skin for this Cromartie cyborg from the first episode that loses all of his skin. And then you get to, one of the coolest things about the show, you get to see the whole process of how a Terminator could have the organic skin grown and then carved out into to look like another person. Like, just fucking cool shit. He's really fucking amazing. This is technically his death episode, but spoiler, he shows up playing another character immediately after this in a role that I think is like, he's even better at than he is as Cromartie. He technically plays 3 different characters on the show, which is fucking cool. And he nails all of them. He's such a great actor. In 2010, after Terminator, he becomes, he joins the main cast for Raising Hope, which I've saw some of. He's very good in. I think a lot of people would recognize him from that. He's on a bunch of episodes of The Mindy Project. He's recurring on Fear the Walking Dead. He's showed up on the Caitlin Olsen procedural High Potential. So like, again, like no matter where you're watching TV, you probably run into this guy probably in multiple episodes of something.
Yes.
He's great.
I was shocked. I was shocked when he wasn't Canadian, just because he was in so many Vancouver productions, and yet, nope, none of the cast are outside of Hetty are Canadian or foreign. Not that she's Canadian, or foreign.
Levin Rambin as Riley Dawson. Oh boy, there's going to be this. If you are interested in watching the show and have gotten this far and are like, I'm cool with being spoiled, but maybe I will pick this up. You kind of convinced me. Definitely stop here, because there's going to be some of the biggest spoilers of the show are centered on the characters we're about to talk about. Yeah. So maybe pause, watch the show, then come back. But if you don't care about spoilers, or you've seen it before, Levin Rambin plays Riley Dawson, who's one of the weirdest fucking characters on this show for so many reasons. Rambin's first role is on All My Children for 161 episodes in 2004, starting in 2004. So big soap opera actress. She also shows up in the Book of Daniel. Weirdly.
Yes. My jaw dropped, and I was like, how are 2 people on this cast and nobody in production shared between these 2 shows? I was like, oh, well, maybe there's like a casting director, like this person put them on their minds and like they were no other connection besides they just happened to both be on it.
Yeah. So fucking weird. She gets cast on Terminator, after that. And then from there, after Terminator, she shows up in a bunch of stuff. Again, just a working TV actor, showed up on stuff like Grey's Anatomy, Wizards of Waverly Place on Disney Channel, CSI Miami, One Tree Hill. She's cast as Glimmer in The Hunger Games, which I think a lot of people would know her from that now.
Yes. Yeah.
So again, like Garrett Dillahunt, she's just kind of been everywhere. You might think you don't know her, but probably have seen her in something if you watch enough TV or movies at this point. She kind of stays in the film zone from there, but in TV, she does show up in the Tomorrow People reboot, 5 episodes of season 2 of True Detective. She's the lead in the NBC series Gone. And most recently has a recurring role as the ex-con turned firefighter in the CBS drama Fire Country as Audrey James. So again, all over the place, working actress. This show, I think, is a weird spot in her career.
Yes.
Because she is specifically cast to be John's annoying girlfriend. And I don't say that. I'm not putting that on her. That is how she is meant to be cast intentionally by the writers and creators of the show, how she is meant to be perceived, and definitely how she was perceived from the internet. She is a character who was vehemently hated for the first half of this season. Vehemently. Any review you read, it just is misogynistic shit where it's just like, who's this annoying girl who's complaining all the time? Get her out of here. The show's good, but she sucks. Even like glowing reviews of the show would be like, amazing episode, except Riley sucks. Like that is the zone we're living in here. But I think the wild fucking curveball and swing that the show makes, that is like the type of risk that the show takes that I give it so much credit for, because it's like, what a fucking baller move and gutsy move is like, there's a live chat that came out after this episode that I'll cite for some of the production stuff where like people are, you know, mentioning Riley and complaining like, why does John like this girl? And Josh Freeman said specifically, I think John's an idiot to be involved with Riley, but I think he's got his reasons, because they fucking know that you will hate her. And I think that there's a twofold thing about this. For one, the first season, there are high school storylines that nobody liked, that are not well handled. I love high school soap opera shit. This show does not do it well.
No,
and they recognize that any love interest, there's a love interest they kind of introduced for John in that first season that like he has no chemistry with, that is not very interesting. They set up a whole mystery with her. Writer's strike happens. In between, they're sort of like, that high school shit sucked, didn't it? None of those high school characters were popping. Nobody gives a shit. What if we just drop them and never mention them again? So
exactly.
Season 2 starts, those high school characters are not mentioned ever again. There's whole mysteries that are just dropped and no one complained about it because no one liked them anyway. They're not interesting. John drops out of high school in this season. They're just like, get the high school out of here. No one's watching a Terminator show to see John Connor go to high school. And these writers are not equipped to do that. They're not good at the high school shit.
That's what
like, none of the high school storylines were good. But then that's countered by suddenly this girl from high school shows up and is like, hey, John, I know you're weird, but I'm interested in you. And then she like never goes away. And it's like, why is John interested in this girl? They seem to have nothing in common other than that she is like okay with his weirdness. And people are like, why the fuck are they doing this? You got rid of these other high school elements. Why are you still forcing this teenage girl onto John to like have him attached to? And all she does is cause problems. And Sarah Connor hates her. Cameron's like, we should kill her, right? Like every single character fucking hates her on the show. And it's just John being like a punk teen being like, no, I want to hang out with my girlfriend because I'm a grown up now. Stop it, mom. When can I live my life? Like, but the thing about it is that it's all fucking intentional because it's all meant to be this rug pull where you're supposed to like think that she's getting in the way. And then it's like, yes, because that's the reason that she was created. And in fact, spoiler, she is a character from the future who was specifically brought into the past, trained to manipulate John into like getting him away from Cameron and his family to separate him. And then it turns out actually she's also being manipulated later on in the show. She becomes like a wildly sympathetic, tragic character in the last half of it. Also, she's named after Fox president Kevin Riley, who was pushing them to give John a girlfriend. So they give him a girlfriend in the most tragic, crushing, upsetting way possible, which I think is so fucking funny.
So this was like gagged and gooped for me.
Yes.
I was never a Riley hater. I kind of wrote that off. I kind of wrote it off as like, I just don't care about teenagers. Give me more Sarah. Right. Even give me more Cameron, honestly. But the like 1-2 punch, and it didn't feel like that long of the like, ooh, I'm a spy, to like, I'm the most tragic story you've ever heard in your life. It didn't feel like I had to wait very long. It didn't feel like it was long.
It's immediately after that reveal that they like show you how fucked up her relationship with Jesse is, who's not a character in this episode, but like a fucking also wild ass character this show has. Like this like abusive, like mommy figure / like lesbian lover. It's weird. There's like so much to it. We could have a whole podcast just about that really upsetting, like abusive, manipulative relationship that Riley and Jesse have that happens almost completely off screen, and you only get little bits of it at certain points.
Yeah.
It's very complex and really interesting, and another just like wild thing this show throws out at you.
Well, and I have to assume that part of what you were referring to when you talked about future rewatches being valuable.
Yes.
Because even just rewatching this episode and
this
knowing
episode layers on the hints with Riley in it.
Thank you. I was like, David,
All
how
over the
stupid
place.
were you?
But nobody, that was a shock. No one fucking caught on. People figured that like there was going to be something up with Riley.
Sure.
People figured that it's going to it's going to turn out that she's like important in the future in this way. Or like maybe she's like a T-1000 or some shit. I don't know. Like people, but I don't think anyone expected it to be what it is, which is that like she really is a teenage girl who was just from the future, full of trauma, and then is like being put through further trauma and manipulation to be like the secret sleeper agent, essentially. Like no one could have expected that. And yet when you watch this episode, all over the fucking place, they're dropping hints about her who she really is. It's crazy watching this one again.
Yeah, this was wild. So I imagine that all of season 2 would be more enjoyable when Riley's around, which I know is not. I know she's not in every episode of season 2, but she's pretty here for season 2, right?
She is for a big chunk of it. Yeah. It's everything with Riley and everything with Shirley Manson's character. All that plays differently when you know what's going on.
Yeah.
Also, just fun fact, her name is spelled wrong in the credits for just this episode. It's
I
spelled
noticed that.
Levin with an I. No other episode has that. It's really weird. I don't understand how that happened.
Yeah. And also like, why not fix it?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we got one last main cast to talk about, and then a bonus. And that's Richard T. Jones as James Ellison.
So good.
In a cast with some pretty prolific actors, it is possible that Richard T. Jones is the most prolific actor in the cast.
Kind of wild, actually, but yeah.
Because he did edge out our boy Dillahunt on roles. His first big TV role was part of the main cast in the 1997 CBS police ensemble drama Brooklyn South, which was sort of CBS's answer to ER. Didn't work. More roles and films, and then in 1999, he is the main cast of Judging Amy for all 6 seasons and 138 episodes. I don't know if you messed around with Judging Amy.
No, I remember that show being around, but I never watched it.
Yeah, he was sort of the like, I think you could have interpreted him as a love interest, but it was always very platonic with Amy. And they had really good chemistry together to the point that like there's a very touching moment in the finale between them. Okay. And it like delivers on this like long friendship, but never there's some intimacy, but never really, it's never about that. It's about them as friends.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
Right before Terminator, the Sarah Connor Chronicles, he is in a 10-episode arc on Girlfriends as Aaron, who is one of Joan's paramours. That's Tracy Ellis Ross on Girlfriends. Okay. And he is her eventual fiance. He is called off to Iraq and Girlfriends gets canceled. And like the last episode is him sending a letter to her and her being like, oh no, I'm afraid to read this.
Oh no. Oh, that's so upsetting.
Yeah. Well, anyway, then he is cast in Terminator, the Sarah Connor Chronicles. Ellison's name, of course, is a reference to Harlan Ellison, who sued Orion Pictures for claiming that Terminator was based on the Outer Limits episode Soldier from 1963. I do think that's really fun and petty, and I love them doing that.
Yeah, and his first name is James Cameron, so he's just James Cameron and Harlan Ellison. So they got a James and a Cameron and an Ellison in this. Season 3, they would have introduced someone in the future named Harlan or something, probably. You know?
Yes. After Sarah Connor Chronicles, he does more films. He's in the 2014 Godzilla. Mm-hmm. Is he anyone?
It's not a huge role. Yeah,
I didn't think so.
It's a big cast in that movie.
Yeah, it was a big cast. He was pretty far down, but
he's always playing like a cop or a military guy in a lot of these things, and I think he's a military guy in that. He's a military guy in Godzilla.
Yes, he has a 3-episode arc on Nikita, season 3.
He does.
And then he is a detective or pastor in almost everything he appears in, which is 50 to 60 roles after this.
Which, you know what? He says those Bible quotes in this show very well. This show loves having fucking Richard T. Jones quote us Bible stories almost every episode he appears in.
He is a cop who is constantly quoting the Bible. It is like, this is a glimpse into the rest of your fucking life in Hollywood, man.
It's so funny. So
he does join Jeremy Piven in the short-lived Wisdom of the Crowd series. I watched one of these when it was on. Okay. It was about them crowdfunding a police procedural. So they asked the internet to solve crimes together.
Fun. Okay.
And since 2018, he has been the main cast on the Nathan Fillion show, The Rookie.
Oh, I didn't even realize he was on that. Wow.
And it's still on. What is this? 8 years later.
So
he's
I'm
still
sure,
a rookie.
Yeah, I'm sure every single person in the world has made this joke, but still a rookie 8 years later. Interesting.
Yeah. The premise is that Nathan Fillion's character, late in life, had something change in his life, and he joined the LAPD as a very old man. And thus it is. That's why he's the rookie.
Okay. Don't care. Never going to watch it. Anyway, moving on.
Never going to watch it. Couldn't pay me.
Yeah, not interested in the least. Tragically, one character we're not talking about that we just have to stop down on, just because it's so important to the show, one of the coolest fucking aspects of the show, Shirley Manson from the band Garbage, as in I'm Only Happy When It Rains Garbage. Which song is it where the music video literally has her playing a cyborg? I forget what song it is.
Oh God, that is
Is it The World Is Not Enough?
Oh, yes, it is. It is. Because it intercut. I remember watching this on fucking Total Request Live. This is such fucking aging me. But it would intercut with the Bond film with like not Daniel Craig, good Lord, with Pierce Brosnan and stuff.
Yes. Yeah. So yes, it's the song World Is Not Enough. Yeah. Where she's like a robot cyborg in that one. And also there's like, isn't there like a famous quote about like liking someone peeing in her belly button or something like that is one of her kinks. And then she literally turns into a urinal in her first appearance in the show. Yeah. One of the craziest fucking character reveals in the world, because she's a fucking T-1000 in this show, or T-1001. Sorry.
Thank you, Derek. Please, we can't be sued. I've just got to say that her casting was kind of wild to me, because I was and am a big Garbage head. Like, I like Garbage a lot.
Sure.
In fact, not the first time Shirley Manson's voice has appeared on this podcast, because we used a song from Garbage in one of the closings for Gimmicks.
Wait, which song was that? I don't even remember.
I used it for the TNG episode. Alien Sex Fiend was a B-side from their opening record.
That's right.
Yeah, I love Garbage. I listened to a lot of Garbage in high school and college.
Good.
So when she showed up, which Derek gave me no indication would happen.
No, because you needed to be on the fucking ride for that.
And I was like, don't text Derek, because we are going to talk about this on pod in like a couple weeks. It's no big deal. And months went by and I've been sitting on this fucking shit, Derek. I was so out of my mind. And then I was like, okay, but this is just like a shtick. She's just going to be here for like a hot minute. You're not going to have like Shirley fucking Manson join the cast of the show. And then they have Shirley, she joins the cast of the show
as a fucking liquid metal Terminator. And like, I would argue one of the best Terminators ever.
She's so good. She's
made
so diabolical
across all Terminator media. She's so interesting. She plays it like genius casting choice, because she's so good at this coldness in a way. There's some of the Terminator guest actors on the show that are like one episode Terminators or whatever, and like they're kind of boring and forgettable because they're just playing robots and they're not adding anything to it. Truly good actors can find something in that coldness that makes them creepy or interesting. Arnold Schwarzenegger is good at the Terminator because he does perform as a robot and really does think through what it would be like to be a robot. Summer Glau does a really interesting, layered, complex performance for like a cyborg that you're not really totally sure exactly to what extent she is fully sentient or has emotion. Shirley Manson like plays like a psycho killer, but someone who's like, but I'm only going to kill if I have to, because like I've got really complex goals in mind. And big massive spoiler, she's a fucking good guy, actually. Like technically, sure, she slaughters a lot of people because she's a fucking Terminator still, but like she's trying to save the world at the end of this, which is the coolest fucking twist this show fucking does. It's so cool.
It is so wild, Derek. I wish that she was in this episode. I kind of was waiting for her to show up, and I don't remember like what I thought she would show up for, because I have of course seen this before, but I kind of thought that she would be in this one just because everyone else is, and it's kind of a big deal episode, but it wouldn't make sense for her to be there.
No, they leave the big meeting of Weaver with all the main cast to like the actual final episode of the show. So yeah. Oh God, it is tragic she's not in this one. And I don't know what other episode of the show there are some episodes we could theoretically do with this show. This is definitely the strongest, like, gimmicky one in terms of structure breaking one. There's like the Terminator in the 20s episode, and like the one with like the family and the pregnant mom and stuff. Like, there's ones that are like definitely differently structured ones. But like, this is the one that has like the most cast members, the most gimmicky thing. It just doesn't have Shirley Manson is the only downside to doing this one.
Yeah. And the other one's sort of they don't abandon the conceit, but they don't keep it the full episode the way that this one does. This felt like the glove that fit us. And even here, it sort of lets itself down a couple times in its structure.
I agree. And it's not the best episode of the show, but it is a really good interest.
Agreed. Yeah. I'm a little bummed that I'm not bummed, because I wanted to desperately talk about this series, and this is the gimmick episode, but it is not. If someone was like, what episode of this series should I watch? Season 2, episode 1. Season 1 is great. You should absolutely watch it. But if you just want one, season 2, episode 1.
Yes. Oh my God. Yeah. That fucking first episode of the season is just incredibly good.
But the gimmick of the episode, and I don't usually do this. This is usually Derek, but I did so much research that I had to get out of my head on this.
Thank you. Yeah. Hell yeah.
The gimmick of this episode is that we are using different points of view. We are recurring sequences, and we are moving forward a type of storytelling that I wish had a better name, but for all intents and purposes, we're going to call like the film Go. So
yeah, we could probably workshop the name, but yeah, for now we can do that.
That's what I got, Derek. So this is where we use different characters to weave together a more complete story, sometimes thought of as a quote mosaic story. That's what it's called in literature writing, or simultaneous arcs. So if you're a big reader, Game of Thrones is written in this style. You have a point of view character. They are living through events very similar to other characters who will also give you their point of view. It's present in epistolary literature from like way back to the 19th century, though there's some early evidence of the technique being used in Greek theater as well. And some people argue that the Bible is this. I don't know how I feel about that. Some people also said...
Can't wait for the gimmicks episode on the Bible that we're going to do. What a fun gimmicks bonus that's going to be.
Yikes. I am sick that day. In film style, though, the use of this storytelling technique specifically seems to be a bit more recent, and it is probably from the 1999 film Go, which itself credits Mystery Train and Pulp Fiction, Run Lola Run, but I have seen all of those, and they all include something else. Go by itself seems to be very unique. Run Lola Run, Pulp Fiction, and Mystery Train all rely on different additional things that go into them. For Mystery Train and Run Lola Run, it's a time loop situation, kind of. Spoiler alert for ancient films. And Pulp Fiction is the hyper-violence and sort of nihilism of America.
Right.
The Polish film Blind Chance is also cited in this conversation as maybe the first to use it. Although, again, like Run Lola Run, it's wildly complicated. Best I can tell, Blind Chance is like a better version of Gwyneth Paltrow's Sliding Doors.
Oh, okay, cool.
It's 3 arcs about a man who misses, makes, or something else happens to his train.
This has come up on Gimmicks, hasn't it?
It only has because it's one of Martin Scorsese's favorite films. And so, yes, we have referenced Blind Chance before.
Okay. Because that's sounding familiar.
A lot of other things credit Blind Chance for like visual styles and other things that go into it. It's why it's one of Scorsese's favorites.
Gotcha.
The most go that we get in Mr. Ferguson is Ill Today is when scenes are retold from a new character's point of view, there is an exaggerated focus on the new point of view character. For example, think about when Summer Glau is talking to Thomas Dekker in bed when we start John's story. The camera is just on his face. It is... you just don't see it on television.
Like when you say extreme close up, like it's not just using that, not just casually throwing that out. It's like an extreme close up. You can, if you're watching it in HD, you are seeing the pores on his nose because it's right up in his fucking face. I don't know where the camera actually physically was being held there, but it feels like you just had that fucking camera like inches from his nose, like is what it feels like.
Yeah. Okay. So then I was like, this can't be based on the 1999 film Go, which is fantastic. Derek, have you seen Go?
I have not seen it. I need to though.
I think you might really enjoy it, especially because I know that you like things that came from it, that use this style. But Go was sort of like my go-to third date film when I would have a guy over.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I would put it on as sort of a test of like, can you stand the things that I like? And it was one of the like first DVDs I owned, in addition to Congo, The Matrix, and My Fair Lady. I'm a complicated man.
Wow, what an assortment.
Truly. Why I had Congo on DVDs, nobody can explain. But there are tons of examples of this happening on television, but they're all after Go. And so I have to say that Go really, truly, and honestly might be the genesis of seeing stories told in this style, which very specifically, it's not having an A story, B story, and C story. That is from forever ago.
Yeah.
But it is having the B story overlap the A story to the point that you are repeating your filming of scenes with different styles, different camera angles, and a different focus. And that's what really sets us apart. The episode kind of forgets to use it in the middle and the second half, but it's fine.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I do think that, like, if you're trying to describe this to someone and you're having a hard time, I do think the Rashomon call out is a good one. It's not a Rashomon episode technically, because Rashomon, obviously, it's the same event recounted by different characters and usually told in a different way from different perspectives. But like Rashomon is usually exploring like the truth of it. What is the truth? And sometimes the actual details are changing. You're seeing the objective story in this type of episode. You're not actually seeing anything different from each POV. It's just that, like, because you're seeing it a different POV, you might get more information or see it.
That's what it is.
More information. You're not, even if you see it a different way, it's from a different angle, but not necessarily like a different type of story being told, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And that's why I like literature calling it the mosaic story, because it truly, at the end of the episode, you got a full episode. But the first couple stories that you're seeing with John, you don't get the full story of what is going on between him and Riley. It isn't until later we're in the POV of Cameron and she's got like supersonic hearing because she's a fucking Terminator that you hear their full conversation. Right. It's really smartly done at the beginning of this episode.
It is.
But yeah, not a Rashomon, because we're not like going back. We're not telling a story. It's not the memory of you. You know what? The Bible is a Rashomon, not a mosaic
Whoa. So what's the real truth? No one knows.
No one knows. Well, we're going to get some emails about that.
No, we're not. Anyone who listens to this fucking show is going to agree with us. What are you talking about? I would also say, to a lesser extent, I mean, that is the big gimmick. That is the big gimmick. But I do think this episode also just feels very different in a lot of other ways. Like, to a lesser extent, it just kind of stands out because this is a show that, like, even though it does have them going to different places, for the most part, it's pretty contained in LA and like neighboring areas of LA. So the fact that this episode takes place predominantly in a small village in Mexico, I think is like very different from this show. They don't really go outside of the California area any other time in this show. So that feels important in that way. It features the death of a major character who's been around since episode 1, but it's doing it like even before the midpoint of the season, which I think is very interesting. It kind of lately homages spaghetti westerns at certain points because of the setting and the way that the shootout is conceived and the lead up to that.
Yeah.
It's also like kind of a Dia de los Muertos holiday episode, if you think about it. You know, it was aired, you know, early in November, right? Like, and it takes place prominently. Like that is the holiday literally happening when the characters are in that village. So, you know, it kind of works.
Yeah, and we're dropping Dia de los Muertos was just this weekend, so I hope you all had a good time.
There's not a ton about the making of this particular episode. There's great features on the DVD, but like there wasn't a commentary on this one specifically. And there's a lot of interesting stuff in this show. So like, I think this one just doesn't get as talked about as much as some other big ones. But I do think it's useful if you want to know how they get to this one. I don't exactly know how they got to like the POV aspect of breaking the story, but I can see the threads of how you get to this episode, because the writers and producers talk about for season 2, they specifically wanted to expand the scope, meaning more location shooting. You get this episode that is almost exclusively outdoors and on the road and in different settings that are normally there. So that makes sense. And also B, they wanted to see how far they could pull the family apart and put them back together again. This is an episode literally about characters in their own independent stories, separated from each other, then coming together at the end. So I feel like this is that season 2, that season 2 idea in a nutshell in this episode.
Yeah. I will say that I think the POV works really well to get everyone to Mexico. And I think
Yes,
that's
it
the
does.
strength of this style. And so I could almost see this being a little reverse engineered, not like we're going to tell this mosaic story, instead being like, how do we get all the characters to Mexico? And being like, oh, well, we could actually skip large parts of it if we just did this as a POV, because there'll be a suspension of disbelief from the audience because we're using a different style. And that's really smart if that's what you did, creators.
Yes, I agree. I believe that that's what they did. Just, you know, there's not a lot of making up stuff. One fun thing, like if you're watching the DVD feature about like the writer's room, they show like, you know, when were very early in the outlining process, like they hadn't even outlined up through like episode 13 yet. At a certain point, they just flash the whiteboard. And like when they were outlining it originally, this was episode 9 rather than episode 8. They bumped it up. But the title of this episode, or like the log line for the episode they were using, was just Mexican Mayhem, which I just find very funny.
I love it. I actually love everything I can read on this whiteboard. It's making me very happy.
It's very fun.
Like, what's our episode about? The Connors get robbed. Well, yeah, that is exactly what the last episode was about.
Yeah, right. Very funny. When this episode was advertised, they did. I'll make sure it's cut in at some point in this episode if you haven't heard it yet. If you haven't heard it yet, you will. But there's they did the typical like, one character will die, someone won't survive.
So stupid.
And if you watch that promo, like, it kind of spoils that it's Cromartie that's going to die. And if you see the title of the episode and you remember that line from the pilot, you can kind of figure out that it's Cromartie that's going to be dead by the end of this one. So they weren't really hiding that. What they do hide, though, is that Garrett Dillahunt is not that Garrett Dillahunt is like continuing on as a different character. They did try to make it seem like this was his last episode. There's like a post-episode live chat that they would do with like Garrett Dillahunt and some of the writers and producers on it that you can look up the transcript for. And they're like asking him like, what was it like working on it? He's sort of like, oh, I love the cast. I'm really going to miss them. And like, oh, I really wish I could have actually fought with Summerglow, but you know, I guess this is what I'll settle for. Like, this is my favorite part is I loved my time as Cromartie, like specifically. Like, I love that he says that because, like, yeah, because you're gonna stay on the show as someone else after this. It's fucking
incredible. I love that. It just makes me love him even more, and I didn't even think I could.
Yeah.
My only contribution to the making of is that I instantly recognized the Mexican village that they were in from Arrested Development season 2.
Hell yes.
And a lot of things have filmed here. And when I looked at the list, it also shocked me. Chuck did an episode here. What else was I like? Derek might have seen this. Narcos filmed a ton here, as well as Breaking Bad.
So yeah, that totally makes sense. Yep. Same time period too. Yeah, that fits. This mission is very recognizable. And when they are filming the interior, that is the interior of this building. Look, they said they wanted to do more location shooting. Like, they truly don't have a ton of sets in this season, honestly.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And this is just up the road. It's just past Santa Clarita. So it was a day trip, you know, they were fine.
Yeah.
Oh no, they filmed in New Mexico. So they would have had to go to California. This is a little bit far for them.
In the future, my son will lead mankind in a war against Skynet. The computer system programmed to destroy the world. It has sent machines back through time. Some to kill him, one to protect him. Today we fight to stop Skynet from ever being created, to change our future, to change his fate. The war to save mankind begins now.
I think that maybe we'll be a little more accordioned talking about the gimmick in the beginning because it's so much more utilized.
Yeah.
And by the time we go to Mexico, it stretches just a little bit.
I agree. I mean, that's the interesting thing about the show. It's an action show ultimately, but a lot of episodes don't actually have that much action in it. It's a lot of philosophizing and talking and angsting and characters just like figuring shit out. This is an action heavy episode, like unusually so. Like,
yes.
This is a lot of action. And I think they're able to get away with it because it's a lot of the same action sequences that you're seeing from different POVs.
Yeah.
But it does make this episode like a lot less talky. But I think the first section of it that I think you're saying like has more of the gimmick in it is because it is kind of when they're more in their element where it is just characters really talking and having these like layered complex interactions. Once the action starts, it just becomes kind of an action movie, you know?
Yeah. And it's hard to use this shtick in an action sequence. Like you can't be cutting POVs to show somebody getting, well, I guess you could. And so maybe somebody should do it. Show somebody getting punched in a different way. I love that. But I do love that right from the start, we get this title card that says Sarah's story. You already know that like things are going to be happening.
Yes.
I love that we're just going to introduce the mechanic right off the bat and that we don't totally hear John and Riley's conversation as they walk by. And anyone who knows what's going on knows you're going to get it later. I love that. I love it that it's for an intelligent audience. This show is for intelligent people. This is not a show where you can go to the bathroom. You must pause or wait for a commercial.
Even fucking rewatching it, I was sort of like, I've seen this before. I'll do other stuff while I'm rewatching this. And I'm like, shit, this show is so dense that I like forgot so much shit from the last time I watched it. It's like, okay, I'm going to have to pay attention to this as if I'm watching a new show now.
Yeah, but it follows Sarah all the way through to the next morning when she has a conversation with Cameron. Cameron leaves, and then this is where Cromartie shows up and kidnaps Sarah Connor.
One of my favorite things they do in the scene with her camera-wise is that because this is Sarah's POV, like she's just, she's fixing up the safe on the floor. Cromartie just comes in from off-screen, just fucking grabs her by the leg and starts dragging her, which is brutal. But because she's on the floor, like the camera also follows her low to the ground. The majority of this time you don't see, like you see Cromartie for a second when he first grabs her, but you see her dragged all through the fucking house, up the stairs from like this very, very low camera angle. Like they have to be actually like crouching down, holding the camera on the floor, following her. You're only seeing Cromartie's feet and legs through the majority of it, up until they get all the way up to John's room and he opens the door, and you don't really get to see a full body shot of Cromartie until he's like walked into the room, because that's what Sarah would be seeing from the floor.
It makes it, and I don't think this, it's interesting because I do think the films are close to horror, especially the first Terminator film is a very scary movie.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like Sarah Connor Chronicles dips that much into that space, except for this sequence with Cromartie, because his feet just showing up, his like boots just showing up next to her. It's so menacing. It's so painful. The drag is so good. The stunt flip is so incredible because you can't tell that it's not Heidi, but it is not. When she is going up the stairs, it is really perfect television.
Yeah, it's good. It's really good. And it doesn't take that long before you then cut away from that to Cameron's story.
And so great use of the technique, because one of the things that Go did really well, one of the things that Trilogy of Error and The Simpsons does really well, one of the things that versions of this do is you, the audience, want to know what happens next, and you are not allowed to. It is about denied fulfillment of what comes next. And we are going to deny your fulfillment.
Yes. Because then we're jumping back to the beginning of the episode. We're seeing a little bit more of Riley and John's conversation. Still aren't getting all of it. It's still gonna have to wait a little while to hear more of it, because it's Cameron watching them. When it cuts to her after the title card, it just cuts to a extreme close-up of her eyes watching them, because she's always watching. Yeah. And I mentioned this earlier, but it's crystal clear what she can hear because she's a robot. Like, it's great. Right. Oh yeah, that's such a good point. You're right.
And while we don't do the same type of POV camera work with Cameron, I will say that we do some interesting shots of Cameron to sort of communicate coldness. And so it's a sort of emotional POV. Her walking down this hallway is so evocative of like what's going on for Cameron's character right now.
Yeah, it's very quiet. You just hear her footsteps. There's no like background music or sound. And it's like she's almost all in silhouette because you just have like the light from the end of the hallway as she's just slowly, I mean, it's very, I mean, it's like, it is the type of thing you would see in like a slow paced, like indie movie. Like thinking of like some of the shots in like Elephant where you just follow characters for a long time. Like, it's just like, you just have to sit with Cameron quietly walking all the way down the hallway, getting to John's door. It's a thing that you don't really see on network TV that often because you want to be able to hold audience's attention, especially at the time for what should be an action show. So like the fact that they will do shots like this, where it's just like, just got to wait for her to walk to the end of the hallway because this is what her life is like. It's very cold and very quiet, and she just has her mission and she does it.
This also follows her to the next morning because she has that conversation with Sarah. And then she drives away and goes to the safe house, the drop. This is where Derek is keeping supplies as part of his like bigger overall thing. They have sort of a confrontation together before Derek leaves to answer a call. It's John. He's in trouble.
This is when we have Cameron in the like, the sheer shirt and bra with John, like trying to like kind of seduce him. Right.
in the bed, and John even makes an intonation to it, like, "Oh, you're hoping Riley comes in and like freaks out so that we'll break up." And she's like, "I want to kill him." She doesn't say that, but she does. It's just, she does want to kill her.
It's one of the interesting things that they always kind of play with her, where it's just like she's trying to like kind of seduce him a little bit, but I always like that he's just sort of like, what the fuck? Like, what are you doing? It's like, did you change? You're a Terminator. You don't need to change your clothes like midday.
That's right. He even is like, "Why'd you change?" She's like, "It's hot." And he's like, "You can't feel heat. Like, you're a robot."
Yeah. It's interesting. It's not really that important. It's not important to this episode really, because he immediately like dips out and then it's about him with Riley. But it's just one of those interesting things because like when you're getting it from Cameron's POV, like I know that there are some people, you know, in the fandom who are hot and heavy for John and Cameron to get together. I understand that. They're two beautiful actors. I never wanted that for them.
Right.
I understand for dramatically and narratively it makes sense, but it never felt like real. You know what I mean?
Well, and it always felt like Cameron was struggling with a complicated relationship between them. But to me, it always felt platonic and caring and almost motherly more than feeling romantic. I never got romance off of them, but I now read this character as like the biggest fruit who's ever lived. So
right.
Sorry, John Connor. Like, that's who you are.
Look, I think John Connor should always be a little queer. That's my take.
Yeah. Once he sneaks out of the house, though, we do get the title card for the series. And I don't know how this is going to make you feel, Derek, because it's 2008. I understand what television is doing. I really liked the opening before. I liked rotating around the giant Terminator endoskeleton head. I liked Once in Every Generation a Slayer is Born, except it's Leah Headey. Talk to me about like what Terminators are. I loved that. And I miss it.
I liked, so like season 1, it's Lena Headey having her Sarah Connor narration, giving the exposition of the show. It's the beginning of season 2, they change it, and it's just like some random Fox guy.
In the future, a computer program called Skynet will declare war on the human race. Machines have traveled back in time, taking human form to terminate John Connor, the future leader of the Resistance.
And it's like well filmed and everything, but then they just like drop it. By this point in the show, they don't have it at all. I liked it better when it was Lena Headey doing it. I don't like the objective guy. I do like the random narrator like telling you who all the characters are, because I think that was important for audiences who are jumping on to know who the fuck these people are. But I think my favorite part of it is the fucking Terminator head looks so good. The Terminator head being built looks so cool.
And you know what? I know that I'm asking for something that existed in the early 2000s and not the later 2000s. But if you're not going to do the narrative, then just intercut some like rock song and give me some action sequences of these actors with their names popping up in between shots of this great head that you filmed.
Or like, do a sliders thing where it's just a very quick narration. It's nothing complicated. It's just like, my son and I are trying to stop computers from destroying the world as the Terminator head circles. Say it more dramatically, and then you cut to the title sequence. I agree with you. Yeah.
But it looks so fucking good. And the music, for what it is, it's just kind of incidental Terminator music. It's not.
But I do think like it's Bear McCreary who's doing the music, and he's like, he's very iconic. He's done lots of TV and film scores. But it's funny because it's the same like dun 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 drum beat. They have the same steely drum beats, but they add in these like strings and violin music to it, which gives it a wildly different feeling than any other Terminator thing has ever had.
And it made me feel seated for what I was about to do. And so I just really missed it. And the title card is just, it's fine. It's fine. But I know I'm watching the Sarah Connor Chronicles. I don't need this.
Yeah. It is always very funny. Like with this show, there'll be like this opening where it's just like a character like quietly speaking about like philosophically, like what is the meaning of emotion? Will I survive? Will I die? Dun 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 dun.
Well, that's what the series is, Derek.
Pretty much.
But we continue with John's story, and here's my first critique of the gimmick. I could have used another title card that said John's story, because if I just sat through a commercial, I need you to sort of commit to the bit here.
I think the struggle that they are in is that they wanted basically everything pre-title sequence is before the trip to Mexico starts. So then after the title sequence, it is the trip to Mexico, but they couldn't let that couldn't be the beginning of John's story. So they had to still get a little bit of John's story beforehand. So either they have, your Terminator, the Sarah Connor Chronicles title sequence followed by John's story continued.
Yeah.
Because I think it will be weird to say John's story again because they did tell you it's John's story. I think they were just kind of caught in a weird space because I do understand the idea of like post-title sequence, the trip to Mexico has started. Like that's where you're at. So it's weird. It's hard to, I don't know what the right decision would have been with that.
I don't know. I mean, make it a feature. That's the problem. And I think that's the problem that this use of this technique does in television is it works in a feature in a way that gets a little hard to do when there are commercial breaks.
Right. Again, if this was like a streaming show, they wouldn't have that trouble. So
exactly. Then I would have been fine. And that's of course how I watched it. I didn't get a chance to watch this with commercials, but it's still sort of, it stuck with me a little bit, and it will stick with me again in another act break.
But yeah, John and Riley are on the bus to Mexico. Basically this is a village that he and Sarah lived in when he was a kid, and they're kind of going just to get away from everything. And like a lot of this with him is just him rebelling against his family because they don't like Riley, don't like him and Riley. And she's like, what if the two of us, like, this is his teenage rebellion thing, is bringing her. And like, she's just happy to come along or whatever. She's like weird about it at certain points, but like always ends up landing back on like, but no, I want to be with you, because if you know what her motivation is, she's supposed to like, stay with John as much as possible and be like the perfect girlfriend to him, essentially, to hold his attention.
Yeah.
So,
and it almost, and I could see how maybe fans would react to this, it almost reads as saccharine because she's saying the exact right things, but that is what you would do if you were a super spy trying to like seduce this man.
And it's very like kind of manic pixie dream girl in a way, because you're sort of like, you're the fun girl who's like trying to pull him out of his life that he hates, and you'll always want to be around him, and your whole life revolves around him. And like this episode I think is really interesting. She's constantly trying to be like, oh yeah, we should get to know each other, John. Gets him to like unload on her, but still never says anything about herself. Like, ever. It's always about him, which like, if you're trying, like you could read it as sort of like, wow, they just like didn't write this woman very well. But like, no, she's being very intentional about trying to get him to open up while not letting him in at all, because she was holding a big secret.
I love it. Love it all. Love it all. They go to a restaurant. John speaks terrible Spanish. But this is just literally awful. Sorry, Thomas Dekker, but like that's not your skill.
They do comment on that later to him, that it's like, I hate your accent. Speak English.
Yes, they do. That's right.
So, it's fine.
But this is where sort of conflict gets introduced. Someone tries to take their photo. They get into a fight. They go to jail.
Yeah, all the Riley hints are here. She doesn't like skulls because it's Dia de los Muertos. Obviously, in the future, there's skulls everywhere. Yeah. She also like, it's kind of implied that she doesn't know what Dia de los Muertos is. So like, I think Riley just being like, I think we had different childhoods. Yeah, because she's from the fucking future. And then all of this, like, she hears the names John Connor and Sarah Connor. Never, ever at any point in the show does she ever be like, what was with them calling you John Connor? Like, never questions that.
Yeah, she knows.
Because she fucking knows. And she immediately is sort of like, yeah, I'll destroy your camera. I fucking love, it's one of my favorite things that like the guy who takes the picture is sort of like, yeah, I took your picture and it's all digital, so I could even email it to you. Like, they go so hard on it. Like, if you were a fugitive from the law, I bet the FBI could pick up on it because it's all on the internet where everyone can access it. Like, they go so hard on it. It's so funny.
It was almost a hair too much, but I kind of loved everything that was happening, so it didn't bother me.
It's funny, and like Thomas Dekker is just like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, it's just so fucking funny. And then the fact that she immediately is like, yeah, I'll destroy the camera for you. Like, it's so fucking clear that she knows what she's doing. It's hilarious.
Yeah. To the point that I was even like, well, she doesn't want this picture out either. Like, I was kind of reading it as like, this is just another step in like her affection building for John, but I think that there's actually a bonus thing for her as secret agent girl as well.
Sure. But they're in jail now, and this is obviously where the complications are happening. They do eventually get their way broken out of it. Riley, a very good liar, is able to kind of make up a lie to get them to bust out. But as soon as they bust out, they hear gunfire, so we know there will be an action sequence. But like you're saying, like, we're not getting our fulfillment instantly. It's going to be a while before we actually see that shootout, because we then cut back to Sarah's story again.
Yes. Loved this. Cromartie is driving the car. Sarah is bound in the back seat. She like undoes her badges and rolls out of the car. I was like, holy fucking shit. This fucking bitch is crazy. I love her so much. Oh God, I can't get enough of her. And then he immediately stops the car and like puts her in the trunk. And I was like, yeah, Sarah, didn't think this shit through, did you?
Yeah. Like, what were you going to do? Just run? He's got a car. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I get it. She's trying her best, but
it is, Here's the thing. If you watch this episode and haven't seen anything else, this is a quintessential Sarah Connor moment of being like, I'm going to get out of this fucking car and who knows what's next. I don't have step 2.
She'll figure it out. She's just got to take action no matter what she does.
I love everything with her in the trunk. It is such a good use of the conceit of the POV to tell you that there is action upon action upon action going on. And when the trunk opens and it is James Ellison there, I just couldn't believe what was happening.
You get an entire action sequence that you just hear outside of the trunk, and you only hear it just like vaguely muffled from Sarah and her reacting and trying to just like not get fucking tossed around or shot from being in the trunk. You see that action sequence very shortly after this. You get all of it just from the inside of the trunk. It's so fucking cool.
Yeah.
It's also real gruesome when she cuts her hand on that can. Apparently, so like when she, at the end of the episode, when she's like trying to bust the chip up with the gun, like Lena Headey actually like cut her hand when she was doing that. So, cause like in the next episode, her hand's still bandaged up because that was a real life injury that she had. So I think that like, I guess they filmed that sequence early enough in filming that they ended up writing this in where she cuts her hand very gruesomely, I must say. So then that gives her a reason to have a bandage throughout like the whole rest of this episode after this.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It's a gnarly, good effects, good practical effect. Yes. It looks awful.
It's wild to me, some of the stuff they got away with on network TV with this show. It is very gory and violent at certain points.
Yes, because at one point in time I was like, wow, this is a lot of guns for network television.
Right.
But then
seriously,
it might be Headey's cut that was the bigger standards and practices hit for me.
Yes, that shocked me.
Well, Ellison's reveal puts us into Ellison's story. It's kind of wild because Ellison has been around forever, but like this was a big surprise to me at this point in time in season 2 of taking the focus here, and it was great. It was wonderful. I loved it.
Yeah, I mean this is the episode where like he just actually gets to hang out with the Connors for a long time and be in on the action. Like this is the first time in the show that's actually really happened, which is pretty momentous, honestly.
And it all starts with him just like being out for a jog. He takes a call, and the next thing we see is that Ellison is in Mexico speaking with the chief of police. Great. But you know what? That's the whole point of this doing. I don't have to see Ellison get there. How does he get there? It doesn't matter. He gets pulled out. The chief of police gets pulled out to talk to Cromartie, who has showed up, and we can see through the window.
God, it's such a cool shot because Ellison just started sitting there waiting, and you just see him walk in from out of frame. And because it takes a bit for Ellison to even like turn on and be like, "Hey, I know that guy. That's a fucking Terminator."
It's so scary.
It's scary because he just pops in out of nowhere,
and he like reaches into a bag, and I'm like, "Well, fuck! I have now seen enough Terminators to know that a gun is in this bag."
Yeah,
and just he starts shooting motherfuckers. And Ellison has to like run for cover to try to keep himself safe because we're in his POV. So what I want is to see all of this like horrible carnage, but I can't because I am trapped in a place where Ellison should be, which is keeping himself safe.
Right. And you know that you will, but it's just like a matter of when, right?
Yeah.
I think that's what's fun with this episode. There's always that, it's not just the tension about what's happening narratively, it's the tension of when you are going to be allowed to see what is happening narratively.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is where Ellison goes to then leave the station. He bumps into John, like literally tackles him and is like, I'm here to save you, I guess.
Yeah.
And Ellison, John, and Riley get into Cromartie's car and they drive up as Cromartie fires after them. It's great. Riley in the backseat feels something in the truck.
Oh my God.
And that's what makes them stop and open it. And that's our connective tissue.
To Sarah. Yeah. It's just so it's crazy how fast this episode moves too with all of these.
Yeah.
Like these aren't extensive sequences, but like cutting between their stories. Like they're often very short scenes from going from one POV to the other, but it still feels substantial when they're doing it.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Yeah.
There's one where it's just like, why was this a thing? But we'll get to that.
We'll get to it. Yeah. So this is where they all like run for cover and then we have an act break. And this is probably like, this was the act break that hurt me the most. Because when we come back, we should still be in Ellison's POV, but like we are not. We're in nobody's POV for this little sequence, unfortunately.
Well, it's weird because it's like by this point, all these characters are just now together and they're going to be together for the rest of the episode. I think that this makes it weird is that they sort of are like, I think the actual end of the episode where every single character is in the same space, it makes sense for that to just be like a normal episode of the show, but they sort of do it a little bit here when I don't think that I agree with you. They shouldn't have. I feel like their thinking was sort of like, well, it's everyone here, so it's all of their stories together now. But it's like, I don't know, man. Like just keep the camera with Ellison the whole time.
Thank you. Just put it on his shoulder. I would have been so happy if we would have just done that. That would have been incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the struggle is that they still want to have the nice scene of like John telling Riley to leave and then Riley being like, I don't want to run away from you because she's a super spy who's meant to be around him all the time.
Can I tell you for that sequence, Derek? Hetty has great moments throughout the entire series, but here's some money. 10 minutes that way is a bus line. I was like, yes, fucking queen. Yes, yes. Send this bitch away. I love you.
She is such a bitch in this whole scene. It's so funny. She's a bitch to Riley, to Ellison too, sort of like,
Why are you here?
John was flagged at an FBI computer.
Couldn't you just have buried it?
It's been watching me.
It?
Out there. It.
And you still came to Mexico? You could have led it right to John.
Wasn't me in the trunk.
So what were you gonna do, just pop him out of jail? Set him free, no questions asked?
Yes, actually. That's exactly what I was going to do.
I have a hard time believing that.
I owed you one. The fire. Silverman's cabin.
Wasn't much.
That was my life.
How you feel about that now?
there's so frequently times that I'm like, Sarah, you could use an FBI agent on your side who believes you, knows about the future, helps you cover things up, constantly trying to rescue you.
No.
Like, this is an ally that you want. And yet constantly sort of like, Sarah, I'm here to help you. And she's like, why? Why are you here to help me? Why don't you get out of here? It's like, well, you saved my life. And how do you feel about that now, huh? It's just like, dude, he's like the only person who's ever been nice to you in your entire life. Like, come on, girl.
Or when Ellison is like spilling his guts being like, yeah, I lost my job and my wife, and Sarah being like, is that all you lost? Oh my God, savage. Just savage.
It's like, first world problems much.
Wow.
I'm trying to save the world from an apocalypse, and you're sad about your wife that you divorced.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh no.
It's so funny.
But this is where eventually Sarah then calls Derek, and Derek's like, oh, I'm already here.
This is my biggest gripe with this episode, I think. My problem. Derek's story is like 2 lines. Like, I don't understand why there even is a title card for Derek's story, because it just cuts, and it's just him and Cameron being like, we're already in Mexico. Where's Cromartie? Yep. And then it cuts away. That is it. That's all he gets. It's such a bummer.
Well, and not even that, but at one point in time, the camera follows Cameron instead of following Derek.
Yeah, it's weird.
Derek doesn't even get to his own story.
Right, and there's no deleted scenes on the DVD. Like, there's tons of deleted scenes for other episodes. There's no deleted scenes for this episode. So I don't know if they just if there was stuff cut from the script stage. They definitely never filmed stuff with Derek. I really think that maybe it was just a case where it's sort of like they wanted to have the dramatic "Where's Cromartie" line. They needed to get Derek and Cameron to Mexico, but they were like, but there's not really anything else here. I would have liked to see Derek and Cameron alone together in a truck driving all the way to Mexico. There could have been a fun conversation there, because they are a very interesting duo that like hate each other. Like,
yes,
on a long road trip to Mexico. Wish I could have seen that, and it feel really gypped that we didn't get to for this one.
Yeah, it's kind of a bummer, but the line "Where's Cromartie?" and then a smash cut to Cromartie's story.
So good.
It works really fucking well.
That works because now suddenly you're just following a fucking Terminator in his like big shootout that you have been teased the entire time, you know, and you finally get to see it. And it's like a fun fucking homage to like the police station shootout in the first Terminator movie, you know?
Yes. Especially his stalking, the camera angle on him reloading. It was shot for shot, Arnold from the first film. And it, you know what? I love you for that. I love you for that, because you haven't used, it's not like we're going to that well every episode.
No, very
so
rarely,
it feels so special when you do it, and when you're choosing to do it in a police station. Like, it is just so smart. And I can't give enough credit for it. And he's doing a great job being like Cromartie at this moment, who is not Arnold, but is Arnold a little bit. It's really, really good.
Garrett Dillahunt rocks. I really like whenever he gives like that awkward little smile that he gives people when he's trying to like be nice before he then like will shoot them in the head, that then he like continues to have when he's playing John Henry, which I fucking love. I think is really smart. But yeah, no, but it's like he's kind of Arnold, but kind of not. They still like they shoot it with similar angles, but it's still because it's
Right.
the small little prison in a village in Mexico. It's obviously not going to be lit the same as a big
Right.
LA police station is. So it's still like it still feels very distinct from the first Terminator, and you get these really cool moments of him like in total silhouette as he's like walking down the hallway, kind of like the beginning with Cameron in the hallway. Actually, it's very similarly lit. Where you just see these big silhouettes of just him guns akimbo, just like shooting a bunch of fucking cops. It's just like, it's really fucking cool. It's just really, really cool.
Yeah. This is where he does leave the police station. He fires after John. We already saw that from their POV, so it's nice to see it from his. We do the act break and we're back with Cromartie. He sees Ellison and Cromartie follows him back into the old mission. And inside, Ellison appears to be praying as Cromartie comes up behind him. And then I, even on a rewatch, forgot that this was kind of the deal that it was. Mm-hmm. Everyone just lays waste to this villain of villains who we have followed from the very beginning. Up on rooftop windows, Sarah and Derek are unloading at him, which causes him to shoot back at them. And that is when Cameron comes in with a shotgun and just puts him down. It's so good.
It's really cool. It's funny. This is one thing that I always griped out that fans were annoying about. Fans complain where it's sort of like, but like it's a Terminator, you can't just like take him out with guns. And I'm like, there's like 4 people with guns shooting at him from every fucking angle. Eventually that will take them down. It still takes a hell of a lot to take down this one Terminator who's already been kind of damaged because he's been through this whole action sequence ahead of time. Like it does make sense. Then the writers, I think, were trying to like cover for themselves afterwards where they were like, well, Cameron's shotgun actually had depleted uranium shotgun slugs. So that's why it took him out. And I'm like, that's fine, which it's like, it's not present in the episode at all. I'm like, you don't need that. I buy it that like they actually made a smart strategic move of like coming at him from multiple angles with multiple weapons to the point that he couldn't defend himself. And eventually that's going to wear down his machinery, and a good couple of shotgun shots to the face will eventually damage his chip enough that he's going to deactivate, you know?
Right. Yeah. And we've watched Terminators like, quote, lose consciousness and like have to reboot hundreds of times.
Exactly.
Hundreds of times. Calm down, David. Like dozens of times.
Right. And I think it's very cool that like this is still Cromartie's story. So you get his death POV, you get his you know, his view shorting out, and you get the last thing you see is just John shooting him in the fucking face. It's great. It's great.
And I
fucking rules.
It's great and I love it. I wish it was Sarah just because.
I mean, I think they give moments to both of them. I think it works.
Yeah, okay.
Because John doesn't participate in the shootout. It's just Sarah, Derek, and Cameron in the shootout.
Right.
And then John gets to have the last shot at him because, you know, like he fucking ruined his nice little trip to Mexico.
Yeah.
And also is the Terminator that's been pursuing him from episode 1. And then that allows Sarah to have the catharsis at the end of this.
That's true. That's
having the final actual blow to his chip. So I think they give it to both of them, which I think is nice.
But regardless of me originally thinking that maybe it would have been better, the shot of the 5 of them looking down at him is fucking art. It was beautiful. It's gorgeous. I love it. It's incredible.
Oh, it's so good.
During this sequence, I just want to say, at first, as Cromartie is approaching the mission, it is the guitar instrumental version. And then when they are in, it is a cover of the folk song La Llorona. Derek, are you familiar with La Llorona and what the meaning it is in Mexican culture?
Like I know because there's a Riverdale episode from the Rivervale arc that's all about different horror stories, and there's an episode that has like that legend, I guess you would call it, of like the ghost story. Essentially, it retells that basically. Yeah. So yes, I know it. I know it thanks to Riverdale, and now anytime I see it, I just think of Riverdale.
How many sentences is that true for, Derek? Yeah. But here's the deal, because there is a little bit more complexity because we're actually in a Mexican village.
Right.
La Llorona broadly is a story about a woman who drowned her children because they were either bastard born, or there's all sorts of reasons behind the mythos. And then she became a ghost to forever haunt this world because of the sin that she'd created. But because of the colonialism associated with the indigenous people of Mexico, it has a little different of a vibe for Chicano culture and is considered sort of a story about a mother who would rather protect her children by killing them than a mother who would allow them to be put into slavery or abused, which becomes really fucking poignant in a show named after a mother who would do almost anything for her son who has a greater destiny.
Yeah.
And so to me, the decision to use this really haunting choice of La Llorona hit so hard here, in addition to the fact that we're like literally posing Cromartie like Jesus and then showing you a Jesus in case it wasn't clear. Yeah. There was a lot of fucking symbolism going on here, and I really loved and appreciated it.
I had known La Llorona like in the broad strokes, but I didn't even really connect those dots. I mean, this show, I think, really takes the idea of like motherhood and runs with it in so many different ways. It's not just Sarah. Like at a certain point, there's like a Terminator mom, who's a mom to a human and another AI by the end of the show. It's
can't even get into it.
David, you could do an Are You My Mother just on the various mothers of this show and how motherhood is presented. But yeah, but I also think that, like, again, we're already been talking about the show as a whole. I think a lot of what I like that the show does with Sarah is that, like, part of her journey by the end of it is kind of like learning to let John go, and that maybe he's better without her, and that she can be herself without him. And I think that kind of plays into it too, that like she's this mother who will do anything for her kid, but like maybe just like sending him off to the fucking apocalypse on his own is kind of the best thing she can do for him, rather than putting him through this like just life of fucking hiding and terror that won't actually let him become who he's destined to be. I think that kind of plays into it too.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it's incredible. I love it. I love the choice of it. It's just, so much synergy here at the end for such a good scene. It's working on every level.
Yeah. This show's good, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. We get one last scene. They're out of the gimmick now. Every single character that we've been following is now together. And they're together to bury Cromartie. They're intending to return later and destroy the body and everything. But we have this nice little conversation between Ellis and Sarah that we referenced earlier.
Then what?
There is no then what. Pretend I died again.
I lost a lot when you died the first time. My marriage, my career.
That's a lot to you?
I suppose many people lost those things.
You want answers?
I just want to know my role in all of this. What happens after this?
This is it. There's nothing else behind the curtain. This is what I do. It's all I do. You already know why I do it. I'm sorry for what you lost, but I can't help you get any of it back.
I lost so much. And she's like, did you though?
Yes. Get it, girl.
And then we get a really nice moment of Sarah violently destroying Cromartie's chip, which I think, it's like he was the Terminator that was in the pilot episode that started all this bullshit. Like they were actually living a reasonably happy life until he fucking fucked things up and threw them into fucking 2007. So like, I think it's really smart to have her like it's very cathartic to have her just like put all of that fucking pent up emotion and anger and frustration and sadness into just demolishing it at the end of this.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love the final shot where she is sort of comforting John, standing close to them, but not, super close as Cameron. A little bit further away is Derek. And then in the forefront of the camera is Ellison, being kind of an outsider to this found family of people who are together.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like and it's kind of like, I think having an episode about different characters with distinct independent POVs and stories coming together, it makes so much sense for what they're doing with this, because this is they show in an episode about characters who are like disparate and unrelated coming together in different ways, and then ending on like, but who's actually still together and who's still outside of this inner circle,
right? Right.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
It's good. Again, it's just a very artistic shot. Very, very good.
Yeah. Really, really well done. I'm so glad you watched this and liked it. I'm so glad you watched the whole thing too. This would have been really hard to have not seen the whole show for, honestly.
Yes. Agreed. I mean, I do think that the episode does stand alone. I just don't think it's very good alone.
Right. No, I think it works better if
the
you know the context for what they're doing.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I totally agree.
Yeah. There are incredible highs with this. I think that if you are a Terminator fan who hasn't already seen this, you owe it to yourself to check it out and make your own decisions about it. But obviously, Derek and I are big fans of this. I would have loved to continue to watch this. I do think that, like, I guess I felt good. I felt good. It was sort of a really sad ending, but like, I felt good.
I liked the final episode. I know they didn't want it to be the final episode and they wanted to go farther, but as an ending, and there's obviously like mysteries that are technically unsolved. I think there's enough information to like figure out what would have happened afterwards ahead of time and solve some of the mysteries anyway, even if they didn't confirm it. But I think character wise, I think this show really does end on like a really nice finale for Sarah and John, even if open-ended. I think like the insane thing about this show is that like they wouldn't do this and I wouldn't necessarily want it, but there could be a season 3 where there's just no Sarah Connor in it, because I feel like her character is so well resolved and like the final line of the show that is her line is so pitch perfect. That I'm like, that's why I'm like, I obviously wanted more of it, but I'm also like not like, there's a lot of shows that I recommend being like, you're not going to get a satisfying ending, but it's good anyway. I think that ending is really satisfying, even if they didn't intend it to be satisfying. It's really poignant and beautiful and such a perfect capper on the Sarah Connor character and the John Connor character. And just, I don't know. I could not have asked for a better Terminator TV show, even with some of its flaws.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad we talked. I know this was a long episode. Thank you all for sticking with us on it. But I think, you know what? This one deserved it.
Yes, it did. Yes, it definitely did.
Well, we've mentioned it a few times, but honestly, if you want to hear Derek and I talk more about the Terminator, I had a podcast called Are You My Mother, where Derek was on last year and we talked about Sarah Connor from the films. So, you know, we do end up talking a little bit about Emilia Clarke. So if you want more Clarke talk, check out the middle of that episode for like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
But I also am a co-host on the Fear Coded podcast, where we talk about any entry from the horror media. And we are starting kids horror here in November. So we're talking about horror that is appropriate or made for children. And you can check out Fear Coded wherever you get podcasts. Derek, what about you and the things you work out on the world?
Sure. You can find me most places at Derek B. Gale. My other podcasts include Walloping Web Snappers, where you do deep dive into Spider-Man cartoons, Screonk, where we look at the Godzilla films, and Lee Carvalho's Potting Challenge, where we look at Simpsons history, pop culture history, and video game history, and Falling with Style, where we looked at the Pixar films and other related animated films.
Gimmicks is, of course, a proud part of the Glitterjaw Queer Podcast Collective. If you're looking for other queer media podcasts, check out the full roster of Glitterjaw shows at glitterjaw.com.
If you want to support this show by giving us a little tip, you can buy us a coffee at ko-fi.com/gimmickspod, and also follow this podcast at gimmickspod on Blue Sky and Instagram. Email us your questions, feedback, and corrections to gimmickspodcast@gmail.com. Rate, review, and subscribe on all your podcast platforms. And until next time, friends, keep being weird.
Salías del templo un día, llorona, cuando al pasar yo te vi. Salías del templo un día, llorona, cuando al pasar yo te vi.
Mr. Ferguson is ill today. My name is Cromarty.
Is that your only name, like Madonna?